No, I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic. Can't get enough of these glasses with that hypnotic.
So here we are in the mixing portion, and we are in stereo, and I'm going to show you basically how I do my mixing, how I work, and stuff like that. Now, the instrumentals, just so you know, is basically the MP3 file, and I got that from the license, and it has no tags on it because I got the license for $20 from White Hot Productions, and they basically remove the tags where it says, like, this is a White Hot production and stuff like that, right? Now, the best method that you can do when you're doing tracks, if you're trying to do some really professional tracks, is you want to get the premium license, depending on who you work with and how they work. You're going to want to get the tracked out instrumental so that you can mix all the instruments. Right now, I'm doing this in what's called a mixtape fashion. And what that means is a lot of people who make mixtapes, they basically use an MP3 or if they can get a .wav file, 16-bit from the instrumental producer, they'll use that. Because it's just for a mixtape, you know, or maybe for something that you want to push to like managers or something like that. And that's the way I'm doing it here. And another reason why I did not get the tracked out WAV file is because a lot of people say that they can hear the difference between 320 kilobits per second MP3 and WAV. And yes, you can. If I'm in my studio and I go between the two, I personally can hear the difference. I hear a difference in stereo spread. I hear a difference in the top end. There's a slight difference. Now, a lot of people are going to say you can't hear the difference, which, okay, the normal people, if a normal person was to come in here, like people that listen to music, they're not going to be able to tell the difference whatsoever. We're talking about super minute differences that no one could ever really be able to distinguish unless they have a trained ear and they know what to listen for, if they know how the MP3 codecs work and what they're actually doing to the audio. Then you know what to listen for. So I'm using the MP3, all right? Now, the MP3 was mixed just the way I wanted it, all right? I didn't really have to do anything to it. Now, let's say if I did want to do something to the instrumental. You can do mid-side multi-band compression, mid-side equalization, mid-side everything. Anything to do with mid-side, and I'm not going to go over that here because I go over that in my DVD, but I go extensively into mid-side processing. But you can actually go into the instrumental and tweak certain things that, let's say if you don't like how loud the snare is, you can actually go in and change the level of the snare by using mid-side, frequency-specific equalization or compression or expansion, all right? Now, I didn't have to do that with this instrumental because I like the way it was mixed. It was mixed the way it was, you know, he did a good job, and I just mixed my vocals to go into the instrumental to sound a part of the instrumental. So when you are mixing your vocals and everything else, when I am mixing and using EQ, I'm not just EQing a vocal. I'm EQing the vocal by listening not only to my vocal, but also to the other instruments in the mix. And when I do my panning of certain tracks, I'm not just panning a track like, let's say I'm going to go 60% left or 60% right all the time. I'm mixing in relation to where are the instruments inside of the actual beat or the instrumental. Where are they at? Where are they panned? I don't want one of my vocals to be stepping on something else. If it must and it has to, like if I have a real busy instrumental that has like a lot of different sounds inside of it, well, that's where you go into frequency specific type of EQing to where you try not to mask another element. For instance, my background vocals, if they're in the same frequency range of an instrument that is pan to the left 50%, and I want to pan this vocal 50% to the left for some reason, God knows why, and I don't want the vocal to clash with that instrument that is within the same frequency range, I will have to either go into mid-side multi-band equalization mode and try and find that frequency of that instrument and try and mess around with that, or I will adjust my vocals. Okay, this is all, I'm talking about mixtape mixing here, okay, for mixtapes. It's a little different from mixing if I have the full instrumental. I will go in and I'll EQ the vocal a certain way so it doesn't clash with that instrument. It's called mixing. I have a DVD that goes over all of it. You guys probably got it. If not, well, you might want to check it out. So, with all that said, that's what the instrumental is. I used just the instrumental, and I actually did not have to do anything to the instrumental at all because I liked the way it sounded. And I mixed into the instrumental with my vocals. Now let's go over vocals. Once I am done arranging everything, and basically arranging and editing and getting everything where I want it to be, okay, I got my hooks flown out, I got everything exactly where it wants where it needs to be. And I've actually listened to everything, and all these are exactly where they need to be. My next thing I'm going to do is this is the real mix, but I'm doing a pre-mix. And what that means is I'm going to go through and find my plugins I want to use. I usually have an idea what I want them to be when I'm doing the track. And I usually mute the instrumental for this first portion because I'm not trying to hear the instrumental to do this because I'm not mixing into the instrumental just yet. I'm basically just trying to get vocal levels level. The main thing I'm trying to do here is get vocal levels all the way across the track, pretty much level to each other. And I'll work on further dynamic improvements using automation of the all vox bus, which is right here. There's some automation on here, which it's kind of shrunk right now, so you can't really see it. But as you can see, there's some automation going on in there. So what I'll do is I will solo just what I'm going to be mixing, and I'm going to work on this pre-hook section first. I'll make sure everything is turned off, all right? And we're going to go over all this during this whole entire thing. Now, this isn't a full-on mixing DVD, CD, whatever this was on, because that's on my DVD. But you are going to get a lot of info right now about how this works. Now, right now what we were looking at is the pre-hook center, pre-hook left, and pre-hook right. The pre-hook center is going to the pre-hook center bus, all right, because I needed to treat that differently than these two, which I'm treating like a little stress element, which are basically adding emphasis, and they also have that little vocoded sound. So the pre-hook left and the pre-hook right, as you can see, they're panned on the track, 80% left, 80% right, and they are going to the PHLR bus. So I already have everything bust the way I wanted it to bust, all right, because I knew that I was going to use a separate compressor and EQ for this vocal here, and I need a separate one for these. So that's why they're going to two buses. So let's go check out those buses. Here we are. We got the pre-hook center and the pre-hook left-right bus. On them, this is the way I usually work. What I'll have is a EQ in the beginning. Let me turn this on. And my first EQ, all it does is it does a high-pass filter, and it removes some of the mud. Now, I just set this up like this, and I do kind of listen. And I'll turn on the instrumental, and I'll listen, and I'll see how much I want to take out, because this will be further tweaked. All right, this isn't how it looked when I first started, but over the course of tweaking everything, that's what it came to, right? And then I'll have, in this instance, what I'm using is the VX64 vocal processor. And this is what I'm doing with this processor. I got a couple things going on because it's a whole vocal processor. It's got many elements, all right? It's got equalization, compression, it's got a little doubler, which you're going to hear, and it's got a de-esser, all right? I'm using all of those that you see. I am not using this delay area for this instance. And over here, I can change the routing of where I want those to go. I usually have my compression or my equalization first, but since I have equalization up here, I didn't put the equalizer first. This is the compressor. This is the delay processor, which isn't being used. This is the equalization. This is the de-esser, and this is the doubler, which is going to go last in this case. So that's my order that I used. So let me talk about what we got going on here. I basically turn on the de-esser and the compressor and the EQ and the doubler. I want to hear how everything sounds together. And I'm going to stop this EQ here. And I'll listen to only, all right, I'm only going to listen to this element first.
Oh girl, you know I like it.
I'm not bringing in these stresses just yet. I'll listen to this.
Oh girl, you know I like it. You've got me so excited.
I will then start to dial in my compression first, all right? If you see my compressors right here first in the chain, all right? I'll turn my compressor on, and I'll start dialing in compression. And I chose let's see here, a 3-to-1 ratio. My attack is 3.9 milliseconds. And I am compression, well, let's go see. Now, this is, with this compressor, you have to use your ears, all right? And that's because it doesn't give you a value. It doesn't tell you it's compressing a certain amount. Now, if you look at this COMP area right here, this line is basically when it goes down, it's going to tell me how much I'm compressing.
Oh, girl, you know I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me.
So the amount of compression I'm getting, I don't know. It's not telling me. But I'm using my ear to hear. I'm using my ears to hear. Now, I do have other compressors we're going to look at where I can actually see the value of what I'm compressing at. So first I'll adjust my compression by adjusting my threshold right here to what I want to be able to compress.
Oh girl, you know I like it.
And that was what I ended up wanting for that. And then I will dial in some EQ, which you see here. You can just, I'm not using this delay, so that doesn't even matter. It's basically bypassed. I'm using the EQ next.
Oh girl, you know I like it.
And these are your basically your frequencies, and then you have your, the only ones that I am using are this one here and this one here. As you can see, I have this as the level. I got this one down 1.1 dB, and then this one is down 2.5 dB. So around the frequency of 235 hertz, I decided to dip right there. Right here is some saturation that you can dial in for the EQ, and then you can use this saturation knob to dial in like it's a tube sound, a tube specific type sound for that frequency band. I'm not using that. I'm just using the equalizer, okay? Because I'm also going to do further equalization. This is just to get rid of any mud or any other type of sound I didn't like at the time. After the EQ is my de-esser, all right? What I'm doing with this is a really good de-esser. I like the way it works. Let's see. Hear that? What that does, it allows me to hear the S's that are being taken out by clicking this listen. All right.
Hypnotic. Come on, let's get.
A lot of de-essers allow you to do that. And we'll look at the Waves de-esser. It also does the same thing. It allows me to listen to only what's being removed. So you are able to hear the S's that I am removing. And I actually like this de-esser. It's a really good de-esser. And this depth is basically how much of the reduction is actually going to happen, which you dial in as you're listening. You listen to the S's, the whole thing, like when you're actually listening to the vocals.
Oh, it feels so rowdy.
You can actually see me getting some gain reduction with the de-esser right here. These little dots are actually gain reduction.
Oh, it feels so rowdy.
So, on feel and so are getting de-essed.
Oh, it feels so.
And if I listen, right here. So the and the s got de-essed, all right? So I'm using that, and here's the doubler, all right? I love this on this plugin. You can actually do this, which will take some routing and copying the track and doing the Haas effect, which takes it doesn't take a long time, but it's a little bit complicated for some people, and I just don't want to make extra tracks to do this. If you want to know what that is, just research it. I'll also talk about it in my DVD, I believe it's called the Haas effect, how to create a stereo effect out of a mono vocal, basically. And I believe I talked about this earlier during this tutorial series. Now, what this does is it basically, if I click onto the doubler right here, as you can see, you have this center one, which is your lead vocal. This is just basically a visual representation they're trying to give you of what's happening. So right here we got the center vocal, and then we got these little fakies that are off to the left and the right. They're fake vocals, basically a copy of the lead vocal to the left and the right, and they have what it's doing, if you want to know what it's doing inside of the plugin, it's creating a separate delay amount for this one and this one, and it's probably also maybe pitching it just a little bit, because in order to have the center one in the center plus these two off to the left and right, you're going to have to do some pitch shifting also, possibly. You can also control the stereo spread of that with this slider here. As you see, as I move this, those yellow ones start to come in, and then if you notice, if you bring them right in on top of each other, they kind of slide over each other, which is probably signifying some kind of pitching. I'm not sure what they're trying to tell me there, but that's what that does. I have them all the way out, and all this is doing is it's adding a sense of space around. Remember, we are working on just this center one. So what this is doing is it is adding a sense of space around that vocal by itself, because I have no other vocal that's saying this. It's only this one. And I wanted this one to be wide, but not as wide as the real hook, because this real hook, I have it panned hard left, hard right with these, and this one's in the center, and they all say the same thing. But this one's just one vocal by itself. So I wanted this to seem, instead of going from direct mono into a straight up fully wide stereo hook, I kind of transition from, let's say, a lead verse that's pretty much mono, which goes into like a sort of more width for this part, and then full-on width for this part. So I have just this vocal, so I need to create a sense of space and width with it. And you can use this trick on lead vocals too. Instead of using, let's say, the thickness controller that I use, if you get this plugin, which I've always loved, if you get this plugin, you can use just this doubler here, and you can get kind of the same effect, the Nate Dogg type vibe, or however, it won't have all the little minute pitch shifting, so it won't, and you don't have the auto-tune before it, so maybe if you put auto-tune before it. But it's basically just a doubler. That's what it does. And the more you bring this up, as you can see over here, if you look over here, the yellow is going up. It's increasing the sense of volume. It's basically increasing the volume of those copies that it's creating. All right. So what I will do is I'll listen, and I'll bring this all the way down, and we'll listen, and then I'll start to bring it up, and you'll be able to hear the effect. Let me get this in here.
No, I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic. Can't get enough of these classes with a hypnotic. Come on, let's get this parties.
Now, another trick you could do, I'll show you guys this in a little bit, but what you could do with this is if you put this plug in first and use only the doubler, this is just a little tip. If you use only the doubler, all right, and you have one vocal, use the doubler portion of this plugin or the waves doubler, then follow that up with a mid-side plugin that can remove the mid or the side. You can basically adjust the mid or the side level. If you remove the mid, basically take away all the mid, what's down the middle, the main lead vocal that's right here, right, the main one, all you'll have left is the left and the right. So you can basically take those and make that center one panned out to the left and right, and basically you can adjust the volume of this center one, which of course you could always just adjust the volume the other way. That's just a little tip, just throwing that out there. You can also do that. But what I do is I listen and I just adjust this to where I believe this is just the first initial treatment. I still got to listen to it with the instrumental, and I still got to think about how I'm going to use this along with all my other vocal elements, such as the other part of my hook and stuff like that.
No, I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic. Can't get enough of these classes with...
Now, as I'm listening, you also have this harmony engine going. So you can mute that.
No, I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic. Can't get enough of these classes with a hip.
See how it adds just a little bit of space around the vocal? Now, it's up to you how much of this you want to use. And what else this does is you can also just use this instead of reverb if you're going for like a hip-hop track, all right? Because a lot of hip-hop tracks are raw and gritty. They don't use a lot of reverb. You could use this just to add a sense of space around the vocal, because it is actually, like I said, creating small delays, and you can use delay instead of reverb. And a lot of professional mixers and a lot of people do that, use delay instead of reverb for, you know, just a light touch of room sound or just a little bit of space on the vocals. So I'll probably do that without the harmony engine, because then I'm going to turn the harmony engine on, and then I'll listen.
No, I like it. You've got me so excited.
So that's good.
No,
I'll play it with it, and then I'll take it away, and if you're listening on headphones, you'll be able to hear it go away.
No, I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic. Can't get enough of these classes with a hypnotic. Come on, let's...
As I've said, it's very subtle, so... That's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be very subtle. So you might not be able to hear it with the harmony going. As far as volume and such, because that's what I'm really trying to do. I'm trying to get an equal volume level across the vocals. And they have these two separate elements here. I have the pre-hook center, pre-hook left, right. And I usually handle my gain staging on the output of the compressor on the strip in the beginning of my mixing process. So I have the input, I have the output. You also have some output saturation you can dial in, and some input saturation. But I'm using this slider here to adjust the volume level. And also, because I have my instrumental at -15, I use that as my reference. So I keep the volume of the instrumental right here, and I dial in my level.
So excited, and when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic.
I'll dial in my level to get the level within the instrumental right here. Just for a rough, remember we're just doing a quick rough mix, getting things sounding. I usually know I use an EQ and then a compressor when I'm doing this. So then I need to bring in this other element and start mixing that. And what I'll do is I'll turn it on, and then I'll start to listen, which is basically these right here.
Oh girl, you know I like it. You've got me so excited.
And as you can hear, there's a lot of low frequency bass in there. So what I'll do is I'll copy my EQ over, but I do further tweak the EQ, which you're going to see. So I'll copy my EQ over, I'll start to listen.
Oh girl, you know I like it.
Let me turn these on and turn off the EQ.
Oh girl, you know I like it. You've got me so excited.
I also adjust the volume, but if we look at my EQ, which isn't on, so you're not going to see shit. Turn it on. You can see I removed a lot of low frequency because, let me play this.
Oh girl, you know I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me, oh it feels so erotic.
I wanted to remove a lot of the low frequency, so that's why you see that EQ doing that. I followed that up with the exact same VX64 vocal strip. However, what's different in this is, the only thing different is I left the doubler the same, the tube EQ, I left that the same. I ended up changing, of course, I'm going to have to change the de-esser and the compressor because I need a different amount of de-essing and I need a different amount of compression. So if we listen to only this, over here. All right, if we listen to that only and we bring up this strip, and I come over here, so excited. Let's turn off the instrumental. I will turn off the instrumental for this so that I can actually hear what's going on with the vocal. So excited is right here.
So excited.
And I can see the amount of reduction. Now, you're going to see, look at this little depth right here, which is basically my threshold and how deep I want to go with my de-essing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, I'm going to bring this one up, which is on the PHLR, pre-hook left, right, and I'm going to bring up, then I'm going to double click on the pre-hook center one, and it's going to open in the same window, and you're going to see the difference in the depth. So here's the one for the pre-hook left, right. When I double click on this one, if you look right here, you're going to see the change. Ready? 1, 2, 3. See that? How it's different? It's got a different depth. That's because I'm using a different amount of de-essing. It's around the same frequency. It's just a different amount. Now, also the compression. If I go back to this one over here on the pre-hook left, right, I am using, since these are stress elements, my stress elements, I usually compress with a higher ratio because I need these really to be able to shine through and come through the other lead vocal. So I use a lot of compression to bring it into your face, basically. And the attack that I'm using is 3.9 milliseconds. A slow attack. It's a pretty slow attack. And there's my ratio, and I'm compressing. If you see here, look at my threshold, this button here, or this knob. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this other one, and you're going to see how I'm using a different compression amount. So if I double click here, it's different, and the ratio is different. So the only thing different between these two is the amount of de-essing and the amount of compression that I am getting. Everything else is pretty much the same. So, and when I'm doing this, I don't even bring in my de-esser because I follow that up with another EQ, which is going to further change the sound, and that's when I go out to my laptop on my car. I'll put that on there. But I will put a de-esser. So pretend like this Pro EQ is in here. I'll have the de-esser there, and I will dial in some de-essing, basically. So let's see. Just with this one here, which is my pre-hook.
So excited, and when you're touching me.
So even more de-essing. I am de-essing the hell out of it because I think I was close up to the microphone for this one, for what I was doing, and I have a really harsh microphone, and it brought out a lot of the S's. So I got the de-esser going, and then this final EQ is just when I go out to my car and I start doing my resonance removals. These frequencies here were causing a resonance, and I'll show you how to do resonance removal shortly. So that's the pre-hook center. We'll go over these effects shortly. Right now, I don't even mess with no reverb or anything, as I've said. So the pre-hook left and right, I'll also then throw on some de-essing for that one. Turn that on.
So excited.
And let's also get that one going.
So excited. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic.
I'm using it in split mode, and then this is the sidechain on this de-esser. If I press only this, let's listen to this this part here.
So excited.
If you can hear only what's being compressed by the de-esser. And I tend to like to use my compressors in this mode right here, bandpass sidechain mode. Basically, it's only listening to that band of frequencies specified with inside the plugin. It's handled by inside the plugin. And around this frequency for my voice. It's always going to be different depending on whose voice you're using. So you actually need to go into listen to the vocal while you're playing it.
So excited.
And start to bring down, you would actually bring down more attenuation.
So excited.
This is ATTEN, attenuation, or basically gain reduction, or basically bringing down the volume of the S's, or the frequency right there, frequency specific compression, or de-essing in this case.
So excited.
You'd actually do more gain reduction because you're trying to hear where the S's are and you're trying to set it up, and then you can also set this up in this mode and listen. And what I do is I'll loop a portion where, like, so excited.
So excited. So excited.
And then I will adjust the frequency and find the best sound
So excited.
that gets rid of the S that I find annoying. So that's how I do the de-esser. And I put that on there, as you can see. And then once I'm done with that, I will then start to listen to both of them and with the instrumental.
So excited, so excited, so excited, so. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic. Can't get enough of these glasses with a hip. Not so excited. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels.
So then I'll listen to it, and that's one thing about doing this stuff. You hear the song over and over and over, and by the time you're done with the song, you're like, you hate the song. You're like, man, I hate this song. Anyway, so that's how I do that. I do my first initial stuff, and like I said, that EQ won't be there. That will be later, but this de-esser will be. Once I have the level set with the instrumental that I'm using as my reference, I'll move on to my next element, basically.
So excited.
Because all I'm doing now is setting levels. I want to set levels. I'm not going to mess with reverb or anything. Then I'll come over here. I'll set up a loop point for here and listen to only this. Now, for processing reasons, and we're not going to be listening to this anymore, I'm just going to turn that off. Then I'll start messing with my CLR bus. And what that is it's my center hook, my hook, my center, left, and right. This is center because it's panned down the center. This is my left because I got it to the left, but this one's hard panned all the way, 100%. And this one's 100% to the right. So they're going to be very wide, and then I'm going to have the one down the center. And if I go to my CLR bus, which is right here, I can just mute these and bring this one in. Now, I will have these going, and here's why. So let me turn those on. I'm listening for the transition between oopsie daisy. Why are you fucking with me? There we go. I'm listening for the transition between these two. So I'm listening for this to transition. And if I turn all these effects off right quick on the PH, on the CLR.
Hold your glasses.
Wow. Okay, so that tells me we got some level things going on here. I need to start adjusting my levels, but I'll do that within my compressor. So if I turn this on, I'll start out with some EQ, and the EQ that I'm choosing to use this time is this one here. All right. And as you can see, after that, I'll throw my compressor on because I know I need to get some gain reduction and basically adjust some volume with this right here. So I will actually go into here, and once I start getting gain reduction and stuff, that will adjust.
Hold your glasses to the sky. Hold your glasses to the sky.
So as you can see, I'm getting my gain reduction, and it's adjusting the level.
Hold your glasses to the sky.
So I'll throw on my compressor, and I'll start to listen to the transition between this.
Hold your glasses to the sky and hey DJ.
Once I get like a level that I'm good with, I'll start to then I'll know that they're pretty much within the same range because I'm not doing any of my full mixing. I'm doing just like trying to get levels, and I'm really just focusing on how it sounds, the vocal alone. I will then just move over here inside this portion and not even worry about the other one anymore.
Glasses to the sky and hey DJ.
So I'm going to leave this on just so we don't blast our ears here. But let's check out this EQ. These are the settings I'm using. They're not typical. They're just for this situation.
Glasses to the sky and hey DJ, turn me higher. You know it's going down. The club is on fire. Ain't got no time for haters. Too busy burning.
And what you're hearing is you are hearing the automated harmony. Remember on this track right here, this center one, I have this harmony that's automated.
Glasses to the sky and
so I'm gonna turn that off, and then what I'll do is I'll just listen.
Glasses to the sky and
I'll start adjusting my EQ, which you already seen, and then I'll think about what kind of compression scheme I want to use. I knew I wanted to use around a 4.4, yeah, this right here, 4-to-1 ratio. I'm using a kind of fast attack, kind of slower release. And this is the mode. You can also set to warm. I'm not going to go over the whole plug-in. But you can see the threshold. As I bring my threshold down, I'm getting
glasses to the sky and hey DJ, turn me higher.
Quite a bit of reduction. So if you add the reduction I got from the beginning when I was first tracking, all right, I got about, 5 to 10 decibels reduction at 1.5 to 1 on the way into my program. And then here I'm doing further gain reduction, but at a 4-to-1 ratio. 4.4 to 1 ratio.
Glasses to the sky and hey DJ, turn me high.
And I usually leave all these going at the same time. The reason why is because they all say the same thing the exact same way. Now, here's the thing. Some of you might be looking at, like, let's say this EQ here, and you're too much worried about how it looks. Like, oh my God, look at this crazy EQ, dude. He's bringing out all this 125. Look at all he's bringing out. Damn, that's a lot of EQ. But it's not, and I'll tell you why. When you have many vocals that are saying the same thing stacked on top of each other, you have a cumulative effect. Basically, more and more of something happening. So any low frequency content in the low frequency of the vocals will, if you add another one saying the same thing, it will increase it even more and increase it even more. So you have a cumulative effect. So that is why you will see yourself using a drastic EQ like this. Now, if you were just to EQ this by itself, you might use something like a high-pass filter, not up to 223. It might be up to 80 hertz high-pass filter, and you might not be removing this as much low-end frequency. But when you start adding them all together, that's when you're going to get the cumulative effect. That's when you're going to start using crazy EQ curves that some of you may be like, well, man, why am I using so much EQ? Well, now you know why. Okay, so you need to start going by what you hear, not what you see. Same thing with compression. You might hear people say, oh, well, you don't want to compress 20 dB. Oh, my God. What you're not seeing is on the way in when these professional recording engineers and when they're doing this stuff in the studio is they're compressing on the way in, and they might be compressing 10 dB. You may have heard, some of you, professional people be like, man, sometimes I just feel like putting a tape over the compression amount because, man, we were compressing heavy on this, like 20 decibels of compression on the way in, or I'm doing 20 decibels of compression in the mix. All right, so it's what sounds good. If 20 decibels of compression sounds good at that moment using that ratio, it's all ratio dependent and attack and all that kind of stuff. That's what sounds good. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter what the freaking graph says or how much you're using. It just matters by the sound. So if you're in here doing crazy EQ cuts, sure, it can mean if you're doing only one vocal, for instance, if I was only EQing this single one right here, and I'm doing psychotic, crazy EQ cuts, that could mean something is going on. You might want to check your signal chain. Some microphones do have resonant frequencies, which I do remove. We'll go over that. But it could mean something's wrong with your signal chain. However, it could also just mean that that's the sound you're going for. All right? So don't take too much thought into it. Just do what sounds good. So that's why you see the crazy EQ curve going on. And We've already seen the compression that I'm getting.
Hey DJ, turn me high.
Remember, we are hearing the one and it has the harmony engine in the center, and we're also hearing the ones off to the left and right.
Hey DJ, turn me higher. You know it's going down. The club is on fire.
Now, while listening to the instrumental and these full hook ensemble of vocals, which is right here, while listening to the instrumental and this,
so excited, and when you're touching me, oh, it feels so right.
just so you know, even though these are showing slapback, delay, and all this kind of stuff, they're not turned on, as you can see. Because I do this without any type of reverb or anything, because we're just doing the levels, as I've said a million times. And I'm just trying to get everything level as far as vocals.
Oh, girl, you know I like it. You've got
This party started.
hold your glasses to the...
So there's a nice transition, and so we're good there. My next thing that I would do is I'd move on to the verse. So since I need to hear the transition from hook to verse, I do know that I can turn these off for processing reasons in the tutorial and for the tutorial. When I come over here, let's say I'd start at this verse here. When it comes in, I have this hook portion. So I do want to hear the transition first. And what I will do is first I will not even worry about the transition, because here's the CLR. And this is CLR right here, but I do need to know the transition from these vocals into here. That is a pretty good transition. But what I'll do is I will only listen to the lead vocal when I'm doing this portion of the mixing. I will not have the instrumental on. I will bring up this. I will not be listening to the transition, and I will start with the vocals only and trying to get a good compression, good sound going all right off the bat. All right, this is without the instrumental. So
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my...
this is just the vocals. There are no other effects going to it. And it's the lead ones over here.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up? Yeah, you can look, but you don't say nothing.
So that was me recording it. That's how it is dry. There's nothing on it.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping...
Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this. I can hear it when I turn this up. And for the tutorial reasons, it's going to be kind of compressed, so you might be able to hear it. This is a dry recording. However, if you listen closely, there's a touch of reverb going on here. And what this is from, and I did this purposefully, is if you guys saw the studio tour, I can't say tour. I don't know how to say that word. Everybody makes fun of the way I say it. Tour. Okay, whatever. The studio look at thing video online, right? Behind me, there is some wall that is exposed, and I got the ceiling above me because my ceiling cloud doesn't extend all the way back to my wall. So there's a little bit of room sound, and I actually like it, okay? Now, depending on who the artist is and how loud we're getting, that room tone can become obnoxious, and it can cause issues. So I do have the cheap stuff that you might have seen in the video that I can hang up. But there is some room sound here. There's a small touch of reverb from the room.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping...
You can mainly hear it on transients like up and whip, you know, like certain, like anything that has to do with like clapping your hands or nice transients or stuff like that. Any sudden sounds, whoop, you know, stuff like that. You can hear the reverb pretty clearly.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up? Yeah, you can look, but you don't say nothing. Shut up. Like Michael Jackson said, you know.
Right there, you can hear a lot of reverb right there where I say, like Michael Jackson.
Like Michael Jackson said, you know. Who's bad? Like Michael Jackson said, you know.
So I can hear the little small amount of room tone, but I like it because it's going to allow me to layer my other reverb. However, if you aren't very skilled with reverb, you might not want to have any type of reverb. You might want to be in a totally dead... I wouldn't say dead, but like an isolation booth, or just have more acoustic treatment around you when you're doing your vocals. So you've already heard it dry. Of course, I'm always going to bring in my EQ, so I'm going to turn all these on. I'm going to disable these. We still aren't using the effects yet. So here's my EQ. Of course, I tweak this as I'm listening to the instrumental, but I always first bring in a high-pass filter, usually around 80 dB. So this is my... low frequency, basically, I got it a peaking filter. This is my, as you can see, my high pass filter, and this is my decibels per octave roll off. I can make it steeper All right, I am using a 24 decibels per octave roll-off. That's what I wanted. And I dialed into 145 hertz. In the end, I ended up going to that right there. So,
like Michael Jackson said, you know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad.
so let's go back to the beginning over here.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my What's up? What's up?
So here's the difference.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on.
And then I'm going to turn it on.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my What's up? What's up?
All it did was it got rid of a lot of the low frequency and mud. It makes it sound more clear, okay? Brought some clarity to the situation. All right. Next up is I wanted to compress, but see, I have a thin voice, and I need to compress when I compress my vocals. First off, the compressor from this thing, all right? This compressor gave me some warmth and some thickness, all right? That's why I like this compressor. So that gave me just a little bit of warmth and thickness, so, I mean, it's not too bad.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
But with the instrumental going, it's going to sound kind of thin, especially removing some of that low frequency stuff. It'll make it sound even thinner, right? Well, to thicken it up, this is my trick, okay? A lot of people do this. I've actually seen one video that does this. And if you go search Vocal Mixing Masterclass by Isotope Ozone, go to YouTube. Just type in Isotope Nectar Vocal Mixing Masterclass. There's a guy who also shows you how to do this technique, but I can show it to you here. I was actually quite surprised when I saw him using it because I'm like, dude, I do the exact same freaking thing. You know what I mean? So here we go. Isotope Nectar. Let's bring that bad boy up. Love this plugin. For the lead vocal, Isotope Nectar. And I'm using it for the parallel compression. All right, I am only using the compression section. And if I could have only one plugin, if they said, you know what, you can only use one plugin for everything, this would be the one I would use because it has everything I need in it. But thankfully, I have other plugins. But the compressor section, as I said, my voice is thin, and parallel compression, also known as New York compression, some people say Motown compression, is to add a sense of thickness to make it sound fat. It has a way of fattening things up. It's used in mastering to bring up low-level sounds. It's basically an upward compressor. Now, ways it's traditionally used, or one of the many ways to do it, because there's so many ways, is you copy this lead vocal track, all these lead vocals, down to the next track. I add a compressor onto this track. I compress the hell out of it. Maybe throw an EQ on it for some warmth. And then I mix in the volume of this one with the one above it. And I basically mix them in to the sound that I like, parallel compression. In mastering, it's used more subtly, if that's even a word, subtly. I've said that before. Another way you could do it is on this lead vocal track, I could throw a compressor such as this. And what happens is I put it to 100%. This is a mix knob, all right? What happens is I set in my compression, like let's say 4-to-1, shit ton of compression, let's say 25 decibels of reduction, and then I dial in, when I use my mix knob here, I'll go from fully compressed to no compression at all, and I dial in the mixture between super compressed and no compression at all, and I can dial it in using my ears, all right? Now, then I'm stuck with only the ratio, the attack and release that I have here, so I don't have the degree of functionality that I want. So in order to get the degree of functionality I want, I could also just use the way I used to do it before I learned about Isotope Nectar having this functionality. I could just use it as a send effect by adding an FX channel, put a compressor on it, doing some pre-fader type stuff depending on how I'm using it, and sending just a bunch of stuff, right? Sending the vocal onto here. I use a send, I use the compressor, okay? But also, I could copy this lead vocal track, as I said, and I could use one compressor on here and one compressor on here. Whatever you want to do, right? Well, that's what I want to do. I want to use a compressor to compress my lead vocal, but then another type of compressor using different settings to compress that even more, but do a mixture between the two. So it sounds crazy, right? Well, it's all handled simple right inside this plugin. Parallel compression, you just click that, it does a parallel compressor, and this right here mixes between this compressor on top. If I open up the other compressor, if I go all the way down here, well, now the balance is set to only this compressor is working. So the lead vocal here, I'm going to go ahead and open up Isotope Nectar, and we're going to focus on just the top compressor or the single compressor. This is just your regular compressor. I got my gain here, or auto gain, and then it has the topology you can choose. I go over topologies and attack and release characteristic curves on my full DVD, or the 20 hours of video tutorials that goes over all the theory of compression, equalization, stuff like that. But just know that also within the program, it's adding different, varying amounts of distortion, harmonic distortion, even and odd harmonics, depending on which one you choose. Also changes, like I said, the attack and release characteristics and some other things, whatever iZotope decided to do. I haven't really analyzed the plugin extensively. Now, the ratio, as you can see, there's a ratio. There's my attack and my release, and there's my gain threshold. So let's see how much gain reduction I'm getting. Again, I have this pushed all the way to the top to this compressor.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up?
So as you can see, I'm getting like 10 decibels of reduction. Well, let's go ahead and open up this other compressor, and we're going to go, and I'm going to go all the way down to that compressor. We're going to see what's going on down here. Well, I have this one in RMS mode. It's set to optical. All right. When you set it to optical, if we go digital, see the ratio? Watch what happens to the ratio. Vintage. See, ratio's still there. Optical, the ratio's gone. It's using its own type of curve to handle ratio. Okay. Now, I haven't already said I had an RMS mode. There's my attack and my release. You have, it might be set in this, which is basically showing your graph right here. But if you go to the filter, by the way, this is a transfer function graph, if you're wondering. This is the filter, and you can adjust the EQ here, all right? So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to get a lot of gain reduction on this. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. And I'm going to squash the hell out of it, basically. So I got it all the way pulled down here.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up? Yeah, you can look, but...
So a shit ton of reduction, like 20 decibels of reduction with this attack and release, fixed ratio that changes depending upon... It's all program dependent upon what it's hearing and stuff like that. And then the filter, I'm going to adjust this to give me an even warm sound.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up? Yeah.
Take off some of the edge around that frequency range right there.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
So here's the one on top, this compressor up here only.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
A little bit of reduction, a 4-to-1 ratio, and it's brighter.
Hopping out my whip and I'm...
Now, as I start to slide this down, I want you to notice the change in the warmth.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up?
So brighter.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
warmer. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix these two by deciding, using my ears, where I want, what type of sound I'm looking for. Now, I would do this adjustment mainly with the instrumental going. I would actually be doing all of this with the instrumental going. But when I first start, I do not have the instrumental going. So
hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
get a sound. I usually just get a sound I like. Like those are some good vocals.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up?
And then I bring in my instrumental.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up? Yeah, you can look, but now you know what is cool.
Let's go turn those on.
Now you know what.
Oops, CLR, my bad.
Now you know why this club's on fire. Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping. Now you know why this club's on fire. Hopping out my whip.
Right there, I'm just listening for the transition between the CLR, or, you know, the hook, and the lead vocal, which is pretty good. So then I will throw on a de-esser. Here's my de-esser.
Now you know what.
Shit. Wow. Let's mute those. How about that?
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
So let's look at my de-esser.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up?
So if I take that off.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
Basically getting rid of some of that S. All right. Well, because it is a de-esser.
But you...
All right, so that's what I got going on with that. Again, this EQ, as you guys already know, is when I take it to my laptop and start doing my resonance removal of annoying frequencies, basically some more corrective EQ. But I usually put that before the de-esser. So that's what we got going on with the lead vocal. Now, once I have the lead vocal sounding pretty level, because again, we're just trying to get our levels between all the vocals pretty constant, some compression going on, some EQ.
Yeah, you can look, but you...
Now we need to throw in the stress, what I call my lead stress overdubs. Here we go. It's basically these tracks here. If I mute this, you guys have all seen this before in my videos.
Gripping on my what's up? What's up?
These are panned left 60% and right 60% via the track. And I want to bring these lead vocals back in, and I'm going to come back over to the mix. I have no effects going on right now with those stresses.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
So they're too loud. And I do have these down -2, but that's probably because I grouped them some point along the mix and brought them down. But at this point, I wouldn't handle the gain from here. I would handle the gain inside my compressor, as I've already said. But I will leave the lead vocal going because I need to know how it sounds in relation to there. So I'll turn this on, but I will omit the compressor. Here's my EQ I used compared to this EQ for the lead. So here it is. And then I went down. I love this compressor. This compressor is just super awesome. Gets a lot of love by everybody else too. I'm using it in warm mode. All right, yeah, smooth and warm. Adds low frequency harmonics. Electro ARC. And you can see I'm using a faster attack. Because it's a stress overdub, I don't want it to be too far forward. I want it to be kind of like behind the vocal. So a trick that you can use to make something sound distant is to take away some of the transient material or the attack to smooth those transients over. If you have a sound that's poking out, it'll poke out of the mix. But if you kill that attack and you get rid of some of those transients and you use a fast attack time, it can really smooth it over and make it sound like it's more distant. Plus, I'm using a higher ratio of 5:1. I just need them really compressed and in your face, but not really to be in your face, but to be more constant in level so that they are still somewhat heard above the amount of dynamics that are going on with the lead vocal. So if I bring that up.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up? Yeah, you can look, but you don't say nothing. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Like Michael Jackson said, you know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad.
So you see how much reduction I'm getting there, and I adjusted my gain right here to get them to be about level.
Shut up. Like Michael Jackson said, you know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. I bet you gonna bite, but you can't top that.
Now, if you're listening on headphones, this is a thing to do with when you're mixing on headphones. One of the reasons why you don't want to do a lot of mixing on headphones, I do all this stuff that I'm showing you right now on my headphones. I mean, this is all just quick going through and getting levels. I just use my headphones for that. But you need to come back when you're done and listen to everything and readjust your levels, because if you listen with headphones, anything you have panned left and right is going to sound louder compared to your mono material. So this lead vocal that's going down the center, and I got these panned left, like 60%, 60% right. Well, with my headphones on, anything panned to the left and the right is going to sound louder than anything that's going down the middle. So I'm going to probably compensate for that, and the adjustment is going to be less. I'm going to add less volume. But then when I come back in my speakers, the way it should be heard, you'll notice that, wow, those vocals, they weren't loud enough. You know what I mean? Because when I had my headphones on, I was like, man, those are loud. I turned them down because they're in the left and the right. But then when I went to my speakers, I'm like, man, those are low. So then I bring them up. So the way you're hearing it right now is the way it was when I had it on my speakers. But it still has to be a good balance between headphones and speakers. So you got to make a balance, and that's what mixing is all about. So
shut up. Like Michael Jackson said, you know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad.
All right, so I also got the de-esser.
Shut up. Like Michael Jackson said, you know who's bad? Shut up. Shut up.
So you can see I'm getting some de-essing there. All right, so then we have the ad-libs. Let's bring those in. What are the ad-libs?
What's up?
Of course, there's not going to be any type of effects on them right now.
What's up? Now you know what's up. Yeah, you can look, but you don't say nothing. Shut up. Yeah, you better. Shut up. Like Michael Jackson said, you know who's bad? Bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We
So these here are my ad-libs.
bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We
Basically callbacks and just repeats and stuff like that. I want to mix them differently. So those are going to their own separate bus, by the way. These are going to the lead ad-lib bus, the left and right, see L ad-lib, and then this one, L ad-lib, that means lead ad-lib. And then this one is to the left 40%, and this one's to the right 40%. These are going to that lead stress, and those are 60% pan. So if we go here.
Bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We bad. I bet.
I'll leave the de-esser on. So my EQ for this is I've used this EQ on another one, just basically getting rid of some of the low frequencies. I end up coming back with this EQ, of course. My compressor.
Bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We.
Same thing, a fast attack. Pretty much probably the same compressor because this vocal is somewhat similar to my stress. And I also want it to sound like it's in the background. A lot of the reason why it sounds like it's in the background somewhat and like a callback is mainly because of my compression, the way I'm doing it. Okay, I got that fast attack. If I was to bring this up.
Bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We bad. Bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad.
It's very subtle, but what it does is it pushes it back a little bit. Also, when I did my ad-libs, I did what's called live mixing, and when I was on the microphone, I actually took a step back to also increase the sense of being away from something. It's called live mixing. A lot of people do it. They actually do. Another way to do live mixing is if you're using outboard gear like outboard compressors and EQs, the guy in the control room that has the speakers that's probably going to be doing the mixing, he will set everything up to where it's pretty much the way he's pretty much going to want it to sound. And then he can have his artists move back and forth away from the microphone to do even further mixing characteristics and to change the sound. So that's what I've done. I stepped away from the mic a little bit, probably about 1.5 feet, back to the wall maybe. I can't really remember, somewhere around there. And that's why it also sounds a little distant. And then there's my de-esser, of course.
Bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We bad.
So if I solo that only.
Who's bad? We bad. Bite. Dad. Fight. Dad.
What the hell
Bite.
is that?
Dad. Fight. Dad.
So let's see what that is.
Who's bad? We bad. Bite. Dad. Bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We bad. I bet you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave. Bet you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can.
So it's just adding this like rhythmic, like bite, fight, like type little thing.
Bet you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that.
That's all that's doing. That's why I did that in there. And of course, we were looking at the de-esser right now.
Bet you gonna bite, but.
And that's what I got going on with the lead ad-lib. So that is all of the lead elemental vocals. Of course, I got this EQ when I come back and show you guys my resonant EQ process. There it is right there. We'll come back to those. So I'm going to get rid of this. Actually, I leave it on, so let's leave these on right quick because of what I'm going to show you next. Here we are at the other lead verse portion. Let me bring this waveform down a little bit. And what I'm going to show you here is just something you need to think about. You notice how my lead vocals, my lead rap is all along the same line here. It's on the same track. Well, you might not always be able to do that. If your first vocalist is just rapping normal, and then your next vocalist is a different guy, and he's rapping louder, and like his is like a really super hype track, you might not be able to use the same track. Here's why. Because I'm compressing that track, well, the bus, because it's sent to this bus, with a certain amount of compression based on what I just did. And what I just did, because you guys are here with me, was I compressed this vocal. Well, what if this vocal here is not the same as this vocal here in volume or anything? Well, that's where you need to decide. If you have another vocalist, what you would do is what I would do, or if I'm doing a hype track, I'll have 2 lead vocal tracks. And the first one's going to be, if there's 3 verses and they're all 3 different, I guess I'll have 3 different lead vocal tracks. And what that means is, one of them is going to have its own bus, and the other one will have its own bus, because I want to do my own compression to that one, and I want it to be differently from that one. Now, what you could do is automate your compressor. I could automate this compressor, but you know what? I don't feel like doing that. That's just retarded. So, I mean, it's not retarded, but it's not something I feel like freaking doing. You know what I mean? It's simpler for me to just create a new track. I got plenty of processing power. I can add more plugins to a new bus. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt my feelings. All right? But if you get lucky enough, as I did in this track, where I am rapping the same level, and then I'm also rapping the same level, in this one, I can use the same track. Also, what I do is, the level here that you see might not have been the level that it was, okay? And what I mean by this is this. When I mixed this Isotope Nectar for the lead track, I was listening to these other vocals, right? The ones we were listening to over here.
Jackson said, you know who's bad.
Well, I don't want to have to go back into my compressor and change all the settings. I mean, I just now compressed for what I was listening to. So let me pin this. This is pinned. Let me drag it out of the way. Let me bring this down. Slide this over for you guys. So what I do is, let's say I'm trying to compress this.
Jackson said, you know who's bad. Who's bad? We bet throw a lot of dollar bills.
First off, it's too low. All right, so I would increase the volume, and what I'm doing is, if you look at my reduction meter over here, look at my reduction meter.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
Like 3 decibels of reduction. I'm not going to mess with my compressor. I'm going to drive the compressor. I'm going to drive these vocals, all right? And a lot of compressors operate like this, like the LA2A, other ones, the 1176. You drive the input into the compressor, okay? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drive the input of these vocals into the compressor, and that's going to determine my sound that I'm going for, and also the compression amount.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us, throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
So I would drive until I get a level that is pretty good, and how I do that is, let me close this. I shrink this down, and I go between the two to where I can see both verse.
Now she looking at me with throw a lot of dollar. Know that it means shawty. Keep it real, but these haters slide my leg, Robert. Keep it real, but these haters gon' dollars I could drop. Ha! Keep it real.
And what I'm doing is I'm listening to the level. I'm listening to the compression. I'm listening to how it sounds. And what I'm doing is I'm thinking, do I need to drive these vocals into the compressor even more to get the same type of dynamic feel? Now, this is just the leveling. I've said this 100 times. I just want to make sure everyone that's listening, well, obviously you're listening if you're watching, it's clear that I'm not really to the 100% mixing stage, because I'm just trying to get the levels between transitions and vocals all the same. All right. Now, when I do this for reals, I am really quick with this. I go through here and I just fly through. It probably takes me like 30 minutes, not even, to get all these vocals where they need to be. Depending on how many parts there are for a vocal, it could take longer, because sometimes I got to get in here and actually fiddle around with the ad-libs, because some of them maybe I said too loud. Like if you notice, this one on the end right here is a little louder than this one. You know what I mean? If you look at the waveform. But so I might have came in here and adjusted the volume on those. So, I mean, depending on what I'm doing, it's all quicker. This is just for the tutorial, so you guys get to see an idea of how this works, which I guess is the whole idea behind this. Anyway, so I'll drive the compressor with the volume control on the actual events, all right? Now, something else you want to take into consideration. If you're going to be driving these vocals and you recorded these around the same time that you did these, you're going to want to select them all. Even though these are muted, you're going to want to select them all, because as I move this volume, I don't want to have to come back down here and then try and move all these. I could just do this one and then come down here and then mess around with this one. But since I recorded them one after the other, because what I actually did was, as you guys know, loop recording, and I basically took this take. If I extend this out, you can see there's more vocals under there. I basically just kept what I wanted to hear. So just something else to think about. That's how I did that. That's how I set the levels for that portion.
Real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us, throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters.
And the same thing. I got the same isotope. You know, pretty much that's going to my lead bus. I mean, for my lead vocals. And this is the same too, so I would adjust them also into the compressor. Afterwards, I'd listen and drive these more or less into the compressor, and I will not mess with my compression settings. So let's check out this sing vocal here and see what that's all about. And I also have the sing stress. That is these vocals right about here. Let me go turn that off. Hopefully it doesn't blast eardrums. I'm going to solo it.
Don't care what you talking about.
Okay, let's go check this out. Now, what's happening here is that's these two here.
Don't care what you talking about. Don't dare let my name leave your mouth. If you don't believe me, better ask somebody.
All right, so I need to also know the transition from here.
Lie. Don't care what you talk. No, that's a lie. Don't care what you talking.
All right, so I'm taking that into consideration when I'm first doing my leveling. So what I'll do is I'll put an EQ. I'll probably just copy this EQ over here because the whole purpose of this EQ is mud removal, to get rid of some of the muddy frequencies and to high pass any of the lower frequencies that aren't really needed. And then I'll follow that up with a compressor, the famous R-comp. You'll notice that this one is set to smooth mode and it's got a slow attack because this is like a lead element. This sing portion right here is part of the lead vocal. But like I was saying earlier, I want a different compression. It's got to have a different sound, so it's being treated as its own separate entity, own separate element in the mix, and that is a lead sing type. Not really singing, but the way it sounds. So I just call it lead sing or sing lead or whatever. And let me show you how much those are panned. You got this one that's down the center, all right, C center. This one's to the left 60, and this one's to the right 60. This one is going to the sing bus, and then these are going to the sing stress bus. So here's the sing and the sing stress bus. And for the transition, I'll leave these on, but then I'll drive into these. So I will listen to this one here.
Don't care what you talking about.
Adjust my compressor.
Don't care what you talking about. Don't
check the transition.
Lie. Don't care what you talking about.
And as I'm listening to this transition,
that's a lie. Don't care what you
I will adjust I already have a pretty good idea. I want about a 4-to-1 ratio, and I'll adjust my attack. The attack and release are further tailored while I'm listening to the instrumental. But I usually know that I'm going to want a slower attack because I want some of the lead vocal to come through.
No, that's a lie. Don't care what you...
Once I get a good level going in with that one, I can go ahead and just ignore the other portion because the transition's good to go.
What you talking about?
And I can start focusing on the vocal alone.
Don't care what you talking about. Don't dare let my name leave.
And so once I was done, I pretty much just set the level for the compressor because, like I said, I did the EQ, this other further EQ on my laptop. So it's resonant removal. I was like, you know what? That level's good. But now let me bring in my...
Don't care what you talk about. Don't dare let my name leave your mouth.
Now it's time to bring these bad boys in and mix those in level with this because I know from the transition from my lead rap verse into my sing type verse, the transition's good, so I can go off the level of this one.
Don't care.
And start adjusting the level for this one.
Don't care what you talk about.
So my EQ, again, the mud removal and a high pass filter. I got my compressor here using, again, a fast attack because I want this to be pushed back a little bit, and I'm using a 6.26, just a 6-to-1 ratio. It's set to smooth, so that's what I got going on.
Don't care what you talking about. Don't dare let my name leave your mouth. If you don't believe me, better ask somebody. Security, throw him out the party.
So you're seeing up to 10 decibels of reduction. Throw on my EQ after I'm doing my laptop stuff, which we'll go over. Again, this is, I've already said this a million times, no effects yet. We're not throwing any reverb. We're just trying to get our levels set. So
don't care what you talking about. Don't dare let my name leave.
There is one more element we got to cover. And so I would know that the transition from here to here is pretty much good to go for now until it's time to do further tweaking during the full mix. And then we need to move over to the bridge because the bridge is the last element that we need to work on, which is right here. So here's the bridge. You guys know how I got the effect on it with the harmony engine and all that good stuff, how we do the effects. Now, I also have this portion here, which I'm also going to have to solo. So I'm going to solo the CLR, which is not playing because I need to solo it here because the way I did it.
Fire.
So here's what needs to happen. I need to make sure that my effects, this is just for the transition.
Now you know why this club's on fire.
I need to make sure that the transition levels are going to be good. And I probably already said it a million times, but we're just doing the levels. Now, you would not want it to be the same level between all vocals. You don't want the hook vocals to be the same level as the bridge vocals, is the same level as the lead verse vocals. That's not going to create a sense of excitement in the track. It's all going to be bland, boring, So I get to that when I start doing my all Vox bus automation. All right. So here's all my different levels of volume, just to throw that out there. I got my compressor where I do my initial gain and my initial leveling as we're doing right now. After I've done my initial leveling, then I will then move on to my actual, you see here, my actual faders if I need to. If I need to readjust something, I'll use my faders. Even on top of that, I have as a final way of doing my levels, and I usually do this after I have everything adjusted the way I want. I will then add excitement and add different level changes using my all Vox bus, which is right here, which we'll go over later. And I do automation on that. So if I bring this in, it's kind of hard to see. You can see that some things are turned down. And if I slide along here, you can see a volume increase on the hook. On this last portion of the hook, it starts to drive the volume up a little bit. Just add some, most people aren't going to notice it, but it's there. It's subliminal. It's a increase in volume, and it just adds excitement to the track. You guys probably heard of it. Now, the bridge. So the transition from here to here needs to be kind of smooth. So I'm going to turn on my, here's the EQ I chose, the Renaissance EQ. Now you're probably wondering, why did you use that EQ and you're using the Pro EQ? It's all about the sound. The EQ curves that this creates is way different from the Pro EQ. And what I'm listening for, if you have a good monitoring system, is I'm listening to the EQ and I'm listening to if it's going to be the EQ to do what I want it to do. And I feel that this one right here was the one that I wanted to use, so it's the one I used. One of my favorite EQs of all time. How many times am I going to say right? So I got that EQ on there. So let's listen.
Fire, I know that.
Way too low in level, right? So I'm going to bring up the all-elusive VX64. Double click on that bad boy, turn her on. Now, what I am using on this one is, as you can see, same EQ. Of course, the compression ratio is 4:1. The compression is going to be different. My attack is 3.9 milliseconds. My de-essing is going to be different. I got the doubler. That's dialed in just a little bit more than I've been using it. However, this time, I'm using the delay section. Okay? And I'm also using over here the saturation on the output. So I'm actually using this plugin's tube emulation of saturation on the output. And I'm adjusting my gain with this. So let's check it out now.
Fire, I know that you like the.
So let's turn off this doubler and this delay.
Fire, I know that you like the things that I do.
Let's turn off the EQ.
Fire, I know that you like the things that I do.
That's just one of my things I like to do is remove a little bit more mud. If there's a lot of mud inside the vocals, I'll use that. And of course, I got this EQ going. So if I turn this EQ off, just listen to how terrible it sounds.
Fire, I know that you like the things that I do.
Way too much low end in that vocal.
Fire,
I was right up on the microphone. My microphone doesn't have proximity effect, but I was right up on the microphone. And let me turn it back on.
Fire, I know that you like.
So that cleans it up real nicely. Bring this bad boy back up. And I'm going to turn the doubler on. And now that I know with this compression that the transition's good,
Fire,
it's good enough, I can actually just stop even monitoring these vocals here. And I can just come here to the bridge. Let me turn these off. Don't need those.
I know that.
Now I can start listening to the bridge and adjusting for the sound that I want. I didn't even turn this doubler. I turned the doubler on, but I didn't have the delay on. The delay came on during the mixing phase. So it was more like this. I was listening. What do I want now? This is a simple vocal. Look at that. That's all it is. But I created a stereo track, as you guys already know, for the harmony engine to put those harmonies out to the left and the right. Also, further want to capitalize on making this sound more thick and robotic-y, you know what I mean? So what I do is I use the all-elusive doubler.
Know that,
And so you guys can hear the effect. Let me turn off the harmony engine.
know that you like the things that I do. That's how I know that I'll be coming home with you.
So I'm going to loop this, and I'm going to take away the doubler, and you'll hear what it's doing.
Know that you like the things that I do. That's how I know that I'll be coming home with you.
Very subtle, right? Now I'm going to throw the harmony engine back in.
Know that you like the things that I do. That's how I know that I'll be coming home with you.
All right, so then I'll throw the delay on just so you guys can hear it.
Know that you like.
It's called a slapback delay. I am using an eighth note, all right, sync to the tempo of the host, okay, eighth, and no feedback. The level is what I am using to adjust how loud it is. And this is the filter curve that I'm using. So if I change the time, let me increase the time so you can hear the delay. Let me throw some feedback.
Know that you like.
Hear that? The delay, the first one you're hearing is the direct or the original sound. Then the delay coming after that is being filtered using this EQ section. I'm taking out a lot of the low end. I'm removing a lot of the top end, of course, because once you bring it here, it basically creates a bell curve. That's all it does. If you want to do further EQ of this portion, you can't do it with inside and if you put a plug-in after this trying to do it, it's not going to work. You would have to use this delay section as a effect send. I wanted to do it with this delay. All right, I'm actually layering the delay. I believe if I come here, you see the slap delay. There's another slap delay and a side chain thrown delay, which we'll go into. I'm using 3 freaking delays on this track. All right, that's what gives it its sound. It's like a surreal type sound that it's giving it, if that's what you would call it. Some of you guys might think it sounds fucking retarded or stupid or doesn't sound good at all. Whatever. We're all entitled to our own thing. But what I've done is, if you listen to the delay, if I bring this bad boy up right here, remove all the cutoff, it pretty much sounds like the original. So I want like a telephony type sound. This gives you like that telephony type delay sound. You can add more warmth in it by increasing the level. And you can choose your frequency that you want to keep. About 1K right there. Now, I have the feedback on. I didn't want any feedback, and the level's way too loud, so I brought the level down. My time, I just did the time right now so you can see it, but I went down to what's called a slap back. An eighth is like it's a really short, quick delay. So let's see what it sounds like. You can barely even hear it. It's there, though. It's just saying the exact same thing. It's just low in volume. You hear that? So it's just a little slapback sound.
Know that you like. Know that you like the things that I do.
All right, so that's what's going on with that. So as I said, I got the saturation on the end there.
Know that you like the things that I do.
That's something that's real subtle. You got to have a good monitoring system. Unless you really drive the saturation, Let's hear what saturation does if I just go crazy with it. Shall we?
I know that you like the things that I do. That's how I know that I'll be coming home with you. I know that you like the things that I do. That's how I know that I'll be coming.
They handle it real good in this plugin. It's very subtle. It all depends on the input also, the input going into the plugin. Increasing saturation will also increase the apparent loudness and the volume of what you're messing with, so take that into consideration.
I know that you like.
So there we go. Plus my de-esser. Let's turn that bad boy on.
I know that you like the things that I do.
I don't have many sounds in that one because of my words that I'm using. So that's the bridge. And there you go. Those are all the vocal elements so far. We still got to address the all Vox bus, and then we got to cover all of the effects that are on them. But that comes into the mixing process. So let's move on to the all Vox bus here. What's happening with this all Vox bus? Well, basically, I want a way to control the volume of all my vocals with one fader at any point in time. Why? Well, because I want to be able to automate that. I want to be able to automate any point in time those vocals. I want to be able to automate it, so I use my all Vox bus. In order to do that, all you do in Studio One is you basically select the ones that you want. So I would select, like all of them, and I right click and say add bus for selected tracks. It basically buses a bus to a bus, and that bus is of course going to be white when you first do it. It's probably going to be named bus 7 or whatever. I just change it, double click on it, name it all Vox, and then change the color to this green color I'm using right now. That's what I usually do. So that's what the all Vox bus is. What this all Vox bus also allows me to do is to further process. I can do my final total EQing. I can do my tape saturation that I use Kramer tape for. All right, I use Waves Kramer tape. Those are the settings that I use. Of course, everything else has to be running for you to see it, which we will do. And then I have my final EQ that I chose, which was basically to remove everything except for the high frequencies. So instead of me just boosting the high frequencies, I removed everything below the high frequencies. It gives a different sound. It's called EQ, yin and yang. If you've watched my other DVD, you know what I'm talking about when it comes to equalization. And then some final last step de-essing of everything. All vocals. All vocals that go through this get a little bit of de-essing. Some of them may hit the de-esser more than others. And I usually go to the loudest portion of the song that has the highest S, because I have another program that automatically detects the highest S ever. I'm totally lying. I don't have that. I just go to where the loudest S I believe it may be, and I go around that and use that to drive my de-esser. And I shouldn't say drive, but to adjust my de-essing for the whole entire track. And this track is the one that gets automated, which we will see shortly, and that is right here. On this portion of the bridge, I was like, you know what, this is just too loud and obnoxious.
Fire.
Oh shit, that was loud.
Fire.
There we go. All right, so let's turn this on. I'll leave that EQ off, doesn't matter.
Fire. I know that you like.
So the I and
Fire. I know that you like.
they were loud. I probably moved towards the microphone a little bit. I do keep my nose on the pop filter, but I probably also said them louder because I do a lot of live mixing with my vocals. If I want something to be emphasized, I might say it louder. So I was like, know that you like. I was probably doing it like that. So when I got to that part, it's a little loud. So I didn't use I just used the automation to control that. That's another thing I use the automation for, is to control stuff like that. So that's what's going on with the all vocals bus. We are now going to move into actually having the instrumental going, and I'm also turning the instrumental off when I do my, I do a mixture. I do a mixture of having the instrumental on, the instrumental off, while I listen to it as I add my effects. I also listen through the song and I think about what type of effects I want to use. And usually before I even do that, I already knew that for this bridge, I knew how I wanted. I have an idea in my mind how I want it to sound. I have an idea in my mind how I want the hook to sound and what kind of effects I'm going to use. So it all comes down to that. We're going to move into the adding the effects phase to the vocals, which I also do a lot without the instrumental going. But when we come to delays and time delays and stuff like that, using the sync of the instrumental, the sync of tempo inside the delay, which is right here. See the sync? That's when we need to start listening to the beat with the instrumental with the track. Because sometimes you may find that syncing to the tempo and being so perfect is not what you're after. Sometimes you're after a little bit more of a loose sound, or you have multiple layer delays like I do. And if you don't want those delays to sit right on top of each other, you will layer them, but you'll layer them frequency-wise, you'll layer them time-wise, but you can also layer them even more time-wise, not just an eighth delay or quarter note delay, but you can layer them using the actual sync. Not using the sync and probably going into milliseconds mode. All right, so let's do that. So we're going to get to these effects. And before we do that, let's talk about this routing. So you guys all know that all my tracks are routed to these buses, all these buses here. And then my buses are routed to another bus called the all Vox, where I can handle all volume and do some final processing. And I have all these tracks routed to the bus, of course, as you see. But what about these things over here? The thing a lot of people forget to do is they forget to route those to where they need to be. They will forget to route their sends to the all Vox bus. If you are busing a bus to another bus, and if on that other bus you have send effects, well, guess what? You send those vocals from this bus to this bus and you change the volume, all that's going to be left is the effects. Let me do a demonstration. So what I'm going to do is I have routed these to the main, all right, because a lot of people forget to do this. But my all Vox are no longer going from here to, when I adjusted them, some people might have adjusted them with this going to the main. Well, then when they create their all Vox bus, what they're not realizing is when you turn this volume fader down, all your effects are still going to be full volume because I'm just turning down the volume of everything that's getting sent here. I'm not changing the volume of these sends. That's because my sends are not going to this bus. They're going to the main output, the same one that this one is. So watch this. I'm going to turn this delay down because this delay is saying the exact same thing as the vocal, so it'll still sound like the vocal's going. But watch this.
Hey DJ, turn me.
I'm going to turn this read mode off so that I can actually bring this down, because if I try and bring this down, it tries to read the automation. So I'm going to bring down the vocal and listen to what you hear. It's really low, right? What you're hearing is the reverb that's on the hook, because we're listening to the hook right now. If we were listening to the lead vocal, you'd just be hearing the lead reverb, because the lead reverb is being sent to the main also. So if I turn this up, you're just going to hear the delay because it's saying the exact same thing. So that's why I turned that down. However, if I route this out to the all Vox bus, it holds on and constrains the volume to where it needs to be. It keeps your mix that you set up so eloquently on your buses. It basically sends all that to here so that whenever you turn this down, everything's kept in balance. So make sure you do that. You need to make sure these are all set. Go into your all Vox bus whenever you create them. All right. That's why I usually create all my buses and my all Vox bus. I have everything routed ahead of time. That's just a thing that I see a lot of people screwing up on, and they may not notice it because their all volume may not change much. If they are doing automation, it's only moving around this much, but it does change the wet mix if you aren't doing this properly. And this is only if you're sending a bus that has a send to another bus. If I sent this again to another bus, well, then we'd have even more issues, right? But that's not what's happening, so we're good. I'd have to find out wherever that vocal is. I'd have to just change my whole scheme, all right? I'm not going to get into that. That's super advanced routing. So here's what's going on. Got the all Vox bus. I'm going to bring this back to where it was, somewhere around there. I'm going to bring this back where it was, all the way up. I usually just leave these like this. Now, you guys might have heard me talking about going out to my car with my laptop. When I do that, if I find I have too much reverb on something, I'll actually reach for this fader and bring the reverb down. I don't go to each of these and start changing my reverb. I just use the reverb fader here, which you'll see later. So, there we go.
Hey DJ.
I got all Vox going. I got everything routed where it needs to be. It's very important before we get to this effects portion because those need to be routed properly. So now let's move on to these effects and what we got going on. So as you guys know, you watched my YouTube video that was free. That was pretty much a requirement on how to create buses and sends. I did that so you guys would know what's going on inside the program that I'm using here. You right click, you say add FX channel, and that creates one. Then I rename it and then I color it red because that's what I like to do because it's awesome. Well, I know for the song that I'm going to want a lead reverb and I'm going to want a separate reverb for my hook vocals, all right? So I got that set up. And then I also figured I'd want a slap delay, so I go ahead and set that up usually. I always set up a delay, usually a slap delay or somewhere around there. And as you can see, it's like a 1/8 second, a 1/8 beat, basically a 1/8 delay. And I set that up, all right? Right off the rip, because if I ever need some slapback delay, hey, here it is. I can just dial in some slapback delay, and there it is. And a delay throw. I might throw a delay throw in there too if I need it. However, this is a special delay throw, which I'll go over. Let's go over real quickly just the lead reverb, all right? So the first thing I do is I always throw an EQ before my reverb, sometimes after, depending on how I feel. Doesn't matter. But what this does is I'm just basically removing the low frequency mud. All right. I don't do this all the time. I do it sometime. Lexicon, this Lexicon vintage plate actually has an EQ section in it, but it's just not as powerful for what I need it. And it does handle some of the stuff that I need done inside of it. So I'll throw in this Q2. I might throw in a Q5, Q6, Q10, whatever I need, however many frequency points I need to use. I just needed either a high pass or a low pass filter, so I just used the high pass filter on this. Then I threw in the Lexicon vintage plate, one of my favorite reverbs of all time. And these are the settings I used. I'm not going to go and teach you how to use this plugin. That's not what this is about. They have manuals for that. If you want to know about what all this pre-delay reverb time stuff is, I can quick touch on it. But my full DVD on mixing goes over reverb extensively. The pre-delay is basically you have your direct sound, which is me talking, but then the reverb of the sound bouncing off the walls and that, your reverb sound, which does die down over time. But the direct signal, which is my voice, and then you will hear the reverb, but you won't hear the reverb until a certain amount of time. Well, how much time? 77 milliseconds. Your pre-delay is the amount of delay before you hear the reverb onset. How long is that reverb going to last? So you hear my direct signal, then you hear it's pre-delayed. The reverb is pre-delayed till 77 milliseconds later it starts to come in. But then the reverb dies out, which is the RT60 time, or reverb time, to where it dies down to around 60 decibels. And that time right here is 0.6 or 600 milliseconds or 0.6 seconds. That's the time I chose. This is a really tight delay, really close to the original sound. It's not a real big room delay. It's not a chamber. This is a vintage plate, as you can see there. And I did kind of mess with the RT high cut, the frequency high cut of those frequencies. And I left it in stereo. I didn't really mess with the early level of the early reflections. I got mixed at 100% because I'm using it as a send. I believe I just chose a vocal plate preset. However, I went to here, the edit, and let's see, the reverb. Here it is, spread. See the spread here? I adjusted that. When you first get it, the spread is probably at a different level. What this does is, it's kind of like a width slider. I can change the width of the reverb. The soft row here is basically, this is telling you how you want to tell width, and it gives you degrees also. All right, it's kind of like a width, but this is further adjusting that width also. And the spread. It's actually more in depth. If you read the manual, it talks about it. I'm just trying to make this real simple. And As far as all these other stuff, I go in here sometimes a lot if I'm trying to get a certain sound. I know what all these parameters do because I read the manual, and I know what I need to do to them. And like I said, I talk about them in my DVD. Not about these specifically, but about all kinds of different parameters you might run into with a reverb. So these are the settings I'm using for that. And that's for the lead vocal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that on. And I'm also going to turn this on. You guys have already known about this. This is the Nate Dogg type stuff. I'm going to turn that on because I got that going to the lead vocal too. So here's the lead vocal soloed. We're at a lead vocal portion of the song, which is about right. Verse 2, right there. You see my little marker? This is my marker lane. There's verse 2.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
Now, let me turn off the thickness.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
Let me bring this down, turn off the reverb.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Throw a lot of keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon'.
Now, I can already hear the little bit of room sound that I captured. I'm going to layer that. You remember I talked about how I got a little bit of reverb inside my room from my back wall that I decided to keep in this instance.
Dollar bills in the sky.
I'm going to further enhance the sound with this reverb.
Dollar bills in the sky.
Now I'm going to dial it in a lot so you can hear it.
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep
crazy, right?
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think?
Now, I would never mix my reverb without the instrumental going. All right? This is my initial dial in some reverb just to hear how the reverb sounds on the vocal. I always do this. It's just the way I work. I like to hear how it sounds on the vocal alone. And I like to see if, because I already know pretty much how the instrumental sounds, and I know what kind of reverbs are being used inside the instrumental. So I got an idea of what I'm looking for. And once I find it, I'll pretty much then bring in the instrumental. So I'll play this. Because when the instrumental starts going, you're going to find yourself dialing in even more reverb. So this is my initial reverb treatment.
Dollar bills in the sky. Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but the...
Now, before I bring my reverb in, like I said, this thickness, you also got to take that into account because that's going to add a sense of space around the vocal, which can be used alone as reverb.
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
Now, when I turn this on, this might sound like a lot of reverb or like a lot of processing. However, that's because you're hearing it by itself. Once you bring the instrumental in, it's going to change everything.
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you... Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I... Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
That is my mono button that I use also to check sounds. I'll put it in the mono. I'll go over that later. It's very important that you guys know about this mono stuff. But I love this program because I just reach down here and boom, mono.
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
All right, so I'm listening to my reverb while the instrumental's going. And then if I turn off the instrumental right quick.
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
So I'll basically just dial in how much reverb I think I'm going to need, and I'll start off with that point. Because everything is further tweaking, because right now I'm just bringing in my effects. So I got my thickness, and I got my reverb on there. That lead vocal is good. Let's move on to the next portion, which is the stress portion. Let's bring that in. And let me turn off all these delays. Anything that has lead reverb, I'm going to go ahead and just add the lead reverb.
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters.
I will also solo these alone.
Dollar sky. Try. Dollar sky.
I usually always use since this is a lead element, I'll use my lead reverb.
Dollar sky.
Then I'll bring it in with the other one.
Dollar bills in the sky.
And what I usually like to do is I like to have, since this already has reverb and I'm saying the same thing over here, I usually dial this one in just a little bit. So let's say if I'll do this. I'll actually use my graph. I'll say negative 31.1 and I'll go and be like, you know what? I'm going to go a little bit less than negative 31.1 because if I go unity or basically the same level, I shouldn't say unity, the same level as the other one, it might only on those words, which is kind of like what I'm after, bring a certain like loudness to that reverb only during that point, which is kind of cool. It's a bouncy effect, kind of creates a nice sound.
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
All right, so I'll dial in some reverb. I'll listen with the instrumental going.
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but
I'll be like, you know what? That's good for now. Let's just get my reverb set up that I'm going to be using. I'm a reverb pro, so if I was in Call of Duty game right now, I'd have a thing called Reverb Pro because I'm the beast with the fucking reverb, and I know a lot about it. I've studied it extensively, so I knew what I was looking for. And for someone like me, I can just throw a reverb sound because I know what the instrumental sounds like. Now, if I had a full instrumental, I usually mix the instrumental first and leave space for vocals. But I would still know the type of reverbs I'm using, the sound the type of reverb I'm going to use. With a very non-busy mix, this mix isn't that busy.
dollar bills in the sky.
It's got a couple instruments, you know. It's got like the bass. It's got like this other little synth bass. It's got like a clap. It's got this, you know, there's not all kinds of crazy wacky shit going everywhere, you know what I mean? So you're not going to use as much reverb as you would use if it was a really dense mix with instrumental.
Dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
All right, so I got something dialed in for what I'm looking for now. Then I will then move on to my ad-libs, bring those in.
Dollar bills in the sky.
And there's none right here, so I'd have to move to another portion. This is what these markers are good for. A lot of people don't use markers, but look, I know where my verse 1 is. I ain't got to fucking scroll all around down here trying to find it.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? Now you know what's up.
So that now you know, I really need to be careful with that because that's a very important element.
No. Now you know.
As I told you guys, I kind of backed away from the mic, which did get more of a room sound. So I'm not going to have to add as much reverb to make this sound far away. And I'm still using the lead element reverb, but it's not dialed in as much because, as I just said, I kind of did some live mixing, stepped away from the microphone, got some more room tone in there.
What's up? Now you know what's up. Yeah, you can look, but you don't say nothing. Shut up. Yeah, you better shut up. Like Michael Jackson said, you know who's bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We bad. I bet you gonna bite, but you.
So I'm going to do it. Let's see what it sounds like without reverb.
Now you know. Now you know.
You guys probably can't hear it. It's very subtle. I can hear it with my headphones.
Now you know.
Now you can get crazy. Now I experimented with this when I was doing it. I was like, let's see what it sounds like crazy loud with the reverb.
What's up? Now you know what's up.
Hear that? How that makes it sound even more distant.
What's up? Now you know what's up. Yeah, you can look, but you don't say nothing. Shut up. Yeah, you better shut up. Like Michael Jackson said, you know who's bad. Who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. We bad.
All right, sounds like he's more in the back of the room, while I'm up forward. This dude saying, "Now you know," is way behind me somewhere. Okay, that's so you can use your reverb amount to also. So I could use the same reverb to just down a little bit more to get a more sense of space, but also use live mixing, as I've already said.
What's up? Now you know what's up.
All right, so we got that reverb dialed in for the lead vocals. The lead vocals have all of their reverb dialed in to where I want to start at. I would then move on to see if there's anywhere else using lead reverb. Yes, my sing, because there's another lead element. And that is, if I just come over here, hook, verse 2, sing verse, which is right here.
Don't care what.
Which is down here.
Don't care what you.
Let's go check out that reverb. I got to throw the effects on this, so I'm going to take these off. No point in having that on. I love to be nice to my computer. You know, if you know anything about electronics, I'm an electronics engineer. That's what I'm going to school for. When I'm actually going to school for. And electronics over time, stuff just, it's time, consummation, using your electronic shit wears out on capacitors and all your other, components. So me being the nerdy guy I am, I don't know, maybe overprotective of my computer, I like to use the least amount of processing power at all times. So though I could just throw thousands of plugins in with this 8 gigabytes of RAM, I like to just keep it nice and neat, and I like to be nice to my computer, just so you know. We have a thing.
Don't care what you talking about.
So I need to bring in these things too.
Don't care what you talking about. Don't care what you talking about.
Now, I have thickness on here too. So as you can see, I have thickness on the sing portion. So let me just come up here. Let's get rid of this. Come down here to the vocals. I just like to let you guys see them.
Don't care what you talking.
So I got a lot of reverb going on here.
Don't care what you talking about.
So you guys know about the thickness. That's creating a sense of space. I don't even really need to use reverb.
Don't care what you talking.
But I do, because I like to marry everything and make it sound like it's in the same space. So I use the reverb and a lot of it.
Don't care what you talking about. Don't dare let my name leave your mouth.
So without this thickness,
Don't care what you talk. Don't care. Don't care.
that's me testing the reverb tail,
Don't care.
seeing how long it delays out to,
Don't care.
which should be a quick reverb. It's not that long.
Don't care. Don't care. Don't care.
That adds the thickness around my voice. Makes it sound wider, right? Like some doubles, because I got the thickness dialed in. You guys already know about thickness.
Don't care what you.
She does too.
Don't care what you talking.
All right, so then we have this right here.
Don't care what you talking.
So I got the talking about part. So let's I'm going to turn that off because we haven't got to that part yet. The delay throws. I do the delay throws later. I just handle my reverb.
Don't care what.
Again, as I said, this may seem like it's taking, oh my God, this just seems like it takes way too long. No, it's only because of the tutorial. When I do this, I fly through, boom, set my levels, boom, set through my reverbs, throw in my reverb amounts. I already know what kind of reverb I'm looking for. Okay, I'm done with that. Let's go see where I need to add my delays at. Let's go throw on some motherfucking delays, dog. So I go around throwing on delays and shit. I go delay crazy. I start throwing delays around, motherfuckers scared, running, crazy. You know, I'm beating on my chest like King Kong. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. So
Don't care.
anyway, let's get back to what we were talking about.
Don't care what you talking about. Don't dare let my name leave your mouth. If you don't believe
So what I'll do is I'll mute that.
talking about.
Yep.
Talking about.
It's going to be a little bit less than my other reverb because I already got a shit ton of reverb going on.
Talking about.
And to tell you the truth, I don't know, when I go back and listen to this, I'm like, man, I have a little too much reverb. But it's what the kind of sound that I was going for. So it's really lush, but it might seem like 80s vibe, you know what I mean?
Talking about. Don't dare let my name leave your mouth. If you don't believe me, better ask somebody. Security, throw 'em out the party. So crazy, oh baby, I know.
As you know, there's no thickness on here. There's just the reverb. So there's a lead reverb on there, and that is all of the instances of the lead reverb, because everything else, all these other elements are hook. Except for this one. This might have a lead reverb. Nope, I put some hook reverb on that one. So that is the lead reverb and how I do my initial adjustment. Let's go check out the hook reverb. So I'm going to turn that bad boy on. And let's open that up. What's the difference? The difference is, if you look at this reverb time, that is the only difference. And I believe the spread may be different. Edit. Input mix. Spread is at 80. So the 80% spread, and then I have a 1.2 millisecond reverb time. Instead of, if I open up this other one, if you look at this one, this one's only 0.6 and the spread is at 53%. So this one's 53%, the hook's 80. Let's go back to the hook. And that's the difference. So 1.2 seconds on that. This delay is basically what I did was I took the tempo of the song and I used just basically, I believe it's a 1/8. That's the 1/8 time. I can't remember. I basically time my pre-delay to the tempo of the track. So that's what that is. So that's the setting I have on the reverb. You can see what I have on the EQ. Basically the same vocal plate. Like I said, just that's the only thing different. And the EQ is pretty much the same. Removing a lot of the mud. You don't want to do anything too drastic different, you know what I mean? I want the song to sound like the hook vocals are like part of the same, performance as the lead vocals. But I do want some difference in the reverb time, and also the spread. So there's that. Let's move over to what has it's this right here, and let's turn this off. Don't need those right now. We need the pre-hook center, pre-hook left, right, CLR, and then the bridge is also going to have it. So we are going to go to those parts right now. Let's go to the We can get them all in one hit just by going right here.
Now, oh girl, you know I like it.
So I will listen without the instrumental going.
Now, oh girl, you know I like it. You've got me so. Now, oh girl, you.
Now, don't forget the slap delay. The other ones are off. We're only looking at this reverb.
Now, oh girl, you know I. Now, oh girl, you know I.
So what I'm doing is I'm listening. All right. Now I'm gonna turn this on. I know the type of tail I'm looking for right off the bat.
No, I like it. No, I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic. Can't get.
Of course, you also have this reverb. Don't forget.
No, I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me.
So I'll adjust that reverb, and then I'll bring this reverb in, usually less because this is the stress.
No, I like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me, oh, it feels so erotic. Can't get enough of these glasses with that hypnotic.
Now, let's do something right quick. If I mute all Vox, listen to the instrumental. Do you hear the keyboard that's doing that minor key? It's got a little delay going on, a lot of reverb on that. There seems to be like a lot of reverb on that. Dum 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 dum. All right. Yeah, a little slap. A little sweep coming in. All right, so analyzing that with my awesome brain that I have, what I came to the conclusion was I knew what kind of reverb I was going to use. But I didn't still have to further tweak it, of course.
Erotic, can't get enough of these glasses with that hypnotic.
The next portion that's using it is the CLR, so let's move over to the CLR.
Hold your glasses to the sky and hey DJ, turn me higher. Hold your glasses to the sky and hold your glasses to the sky and hey DJ, turn me higher. Hold your glasses to the sky and hey DJ, turn me higher.
Now we got all these vocals coming in. I got the hard left, hard right, the one down the center. You may notice that I can dial in a lot of reverb before you even notice.
Hold your glasses to the sky and hey DJ, turn me higher. You know it's going down, the club is on fire. Ain't got no time for haters, too busy burning paper. Hold your
Listening to the tail.
hold your
Tail. I say tail. I don't say it correctly, I guess. People have told me.
hold your
I'm listening to the tail. Tail.
hold your glasses.
All right. So got that tweaked in. Good enough. Now let's go to the bridge.
Know that you
Well, first off, there's no plugins going on there.
know that you
Listen to that change. See, all it takes is someone with a skilled hand, and you can change things drastically. Also, someone without a skilled hand can do it. You know, you could pretty much be anybody and do this kind of stuff, right?
know that you like.
So, don't forget. Okay, you're gonna hear something. Watch. Don't forget about that slapback that's going on in here. Nothing on the tail. Let's turn that on. Hear that? So we got that slapback going on. Don't forget about that. That's handled within the plugin.
Know that you like the things that I do. That's how I know that I'll be coming home with you. Know that you like.
All right, so I got some reverb dialed in there. You guys can see what kind of reverb I'm using. So I got the reverb from my hook reverb. So I've got the lead reverb and the hook reverb pretty much set to where Not where it's going to be, but where I know that it's pretty much, that's the reverb I want to use. That's the sound I'm going for. If during the process of when I was doing the Lithe reverb, I was messing with the spread. I messed with the high frequency cut of the frequencies, and I messed around with all kinds of stuff. Okay, I messed with it, and this is the setting that I came up to. If I had something I wanted to push to the back of a mix, like I said, if I had ad-libs, I'd use for stuff you want to push to the back, you want to use pretty much a 0 pre-delay time. You want the reverb to be smothering the vocal immediately to make it sound like it's further back in the room. Because, again, pre-delay is if you're standing in front of me and you say something, I'm going to hear your lead vocal, I'm going to hear your main I'm going to hear you, and then I'm going to hear the reverb bounce off the wall around us. However, if you're like in the back of the room, cat peeled down, scoping haters, 3-6, going 3-6 on me. If you're in the back of the room doing that, then what's happening is if you say something, I'm going to hear your voice along with the reverb at the same time, because your voice is coming forward, it's bouncing off the walls pretty much the same time, and everything's going to come to me at the same time. So it's going to be like this reverbery, new word, type sound. So the pre-delay is very important. So let's move on to the delay, the simple slapback delay, and then we'll move into the complicated delay throw, which you're going to have to try and wrap your mind around, so be prepared for that. So my slap delay here, my slapback delay, I'll just go ahead and show you what that is first, and then we'll talk about what it does. Okay, it's just a simple delay. All I'm doing, I'll just go through this real quick. I'm using it in sync mode, which means it syncs to the tempo, which is 97.5, and then I can choose eighth notes, half notes, quarter notes, whatever, triple dotted. And then I am using the mix knob is locked at 100% because I'm using it as a send fashion. I'm dialing it as a send, so I always want it 100% wet. I am using the damping section. I basically have all the low frequency, a high pass filter up to 664, which makes it sound very thin. And then I'm rolling out the high frequencies all the way up to 14,000. So it sounds like a little thin sound when I bring it in. And how this works is it sends the real vocal here, and then it goes through the processing, and then I can send it in and dial it in how much. I'm basically dialing in how much is being sent here. So you guys know what a send is. If I come over here, the only thing that's using this slapback is the pre-hook center and the bridge. Those are it. The pre-hook center is one of the reasons why this slapback delay is mono, is because, as I showed you, let me go show you one more time. This delay, which I'm using as a slapback delay, slapback because it's only 1/8 note, which is a very short delay, is set to mono. I got to set the width to mono because I want it to be mono, because this is the center track. It is pan center. The only thing giving it width is this harmony engine, which has the pannings inside of it. As you guys know, you guys remember the harmony engine. All the pans are set in there. So that gives me some width for the harmonies. It also has width from the reverb that's on it. And it also has width from, if we go to PHC, this doubler gives it a little bit of width on it too. So I just need a delay down the center. And to do that, I use a mono. I put it in mono mode, and that's how I get it. Now, let's listen to this delay. What does it sound like? So I got the delay right here. It's turned on. Of course, I'm going to turn the reverb off so you can hear this. All right, there's no reverb on it right now. And this other sidechain stuff isn't on yet because we haven't got to the delay throw. Here's the slapback delay. I got it dialed in. I'm going to turn it up a little bit more than normal. And let's go listen. So, listen.
Like.
Hear that when I say like?
Like it. Like.
Now watch how I was going to turn it on.
Like.
Now, just picture everything I'm saying has this little delay after it.
Like it. You've got me so excited. And when.
Now, this is, let me turn it up a little more to exaggerate.
Like it. You've got me so excited. And when you're touching me.
Now, unless you're going for like a real special effect, you might use it like that. But I'm turning it way down because it needs to be subtle. Like, you don't even know it's there. It's there. Something about you just like it. You just don't know what it is, and this is why.
Like it. You've got me like.
Hear it? It's very low. And if I come over here and turn this off.
Like. like
It's there, okay? So I got that dialed in. That's what my slapback delay is. I have it on there. And, of course, I'll turn the reverb back on because the reverb's supposed to be on.
like it, like
All right, so we got that going. If I come over here, the other part's being used on is the bridge. And the bridge, again, is like a mono portion. Or I should say one little vocal track that I'm using. I'm getting a lot of width out of it using the harmony generator and reverb. And also this slapback delay is not causing any width because it's mono. And the vocal processor has the doubler on. Plus, that also has a slapback delay. This has its own little slapback delay, which is also at an 1/8 note. It has no feedback. There it is. I'm actually layering another one on top of it. All right, so that's what's happening. I'm basically layering a slapback delay. So let's hear what the delay on this bridge here. Let me turn off this slapback delay. Now let's turn this one on. It adds a textural sound to it that I like. Now when it plays, make sure the reverb's on. Let's try it without the reverb. Let me go back in here and turn this one off. So the only slap delay you're hearing right now, is this one here. If I turn it off, nothing. If I bring it back in, all right, and it's mono. That's why it sounds like it's in the center. Now, if I turn this one on, a little bit of a different sound that I liked. And then I'll bring in my reverb. Oopsie daisy. So I got a lot going on with this vocal. It sounds surreal. And that's not all I got going on with it.
know that you like the things that I do. That's how I know that I'll be coming home. I know that you like the things that I do. That's how I know that I'll be coming home with you.
Alright, so that's what's going on with the bridge. That is the slapback delay. It's basically a short delay. You guys can go research that. It was used back in the day when they first discovered, how to make a delay with tape and stuff like that. If you want to know about history just go research it. So that is the slap delay. Now I'm going to leave this on because the next delay we're going to go over, I use the slapback delay along with this other delay on some of the tracks. So let's go check out this all-elusive delay throw. Let's go check out this delay throw now. Okay, so what is a delay throw? Usually a delay throw is where you want to add a delay to like a word and it comes like, I don't know, half a second afterwards. So I'm going to demonstrate it. I got an EQ first, basically. EQ in the delay. Well, the sound before it gets to the delay. And this is a send effect, by the way. And so it's locked to 100%. I'm using a little bit of saturation. Stereo width because of what I use it on. So in this instance, I'm going to use the delay throw on the lead stress elements and some other portions that get it too, that have stereo information. So I need this delay to be able to read stereo and give stereo. Basically, it puts out stereo information. It maintains the stereo. And then I got the feedback. You'll see what that is shortly. I got the low cut, basically high pass filter. And this is a low pass filter, just different name. You can see what's going on there, and I got a quarter note delay, which synced to the tempo of 97.5 would be about 615 milliseconds for a quarter note delay. Now, what is a delay throw? Well, if you looked at the delay time, and if I go over here, I'm going to go to this stress, and let's go listen to this. We got the lead and the stress where I come in and say something along with what I'm saying.
I whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up?
No delay going on. Let's go add a delay throw. I'm going to add this delay throw just for this instance all the way up to 0. So let's listen to that.
I whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up?
Now I'm going to mute this and let you hear this.
I'm gripping on my what's up? What's up?
Here how it keeps going and going. A lot of you already know it's because of the feedback that I got dialed into the delay. So this feedback, if I don't have the feedback on,
I'm gripping on my what's up, what's up? I'm gripping on my what's up, what's up?
There's no delay, so, no feedback. But if I add the feedback in,
I'm gripping on my what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up?
it kind of echoes out. So that's what the feedback's doing. Now, that might sound cool during this portion.
I whip and I'm gripping on my what's up, what's up, what's up? Yeah, you can look, but you don't say nothing. Shut up, shut up, shut up.
If you have something like this, and I went like this through this whole verse, okay, that would work because there's gaps and pauses to where it works. All right, so it works up until a certain point, and that's when, if you're going to use a delay throw, you get to something like this.
Who's bad? We bad. I bet you gonna bite, but you can't talk that. And then
Since I'm delaying these two tracks with the delay throw, this portion right here and these vocals right here are, what's happening is they're stepping over everything because I'm saying all three of these at the same time, and the delay throw is just too much. All right, and it's too much delay. So instead of I just want it to echo something that's on the end. I don't want you to be able to hear the delay. So here's how can I make it so you can't hear the delay? Well, what I could do is I could automate the delay to only come in on certain points. I could actually automate that delay throw send.
We bad.
To where it only comes at the end of the end of this verse, maybe these last two words right here. So that echoes out, but not everything else.
Fight, you can leave with the.
So that nothing else, or there's another way you can do it, especially when the instrumental's going. And here's where the beauty comes in from the compressor that's on there. I'm about to show you. So before I show you the compressor, think about this. What if there was a way that I could, during this rap section, turn down the delay so you couldn't hear them, and they would magically slide back into full volume once I get to the end of a phrase? All right, that is done by sidechain compression. I am going to compress the delay using these vocals so that when it's hearing these vocals, it's compressed, but I'm going to compress the hell out of it. I'm going to compress it so much that you can barely hear the delay when the verse is going during this portion, but once I get to the end of the phrase, the release of the compressor is going to release compression, allow volume to go up, and then you will be able to hear the delay on the end. All right? So let's go look at that. All you do is you throw a compressor afterwards. I'm using the stock compressor that came with Persona Studio One. It's beast. I got look ahead turned off. I got stereo link on. And in order to turn this in, I'm going to have to do this in sidechain mode because I need to sidechain, or basically have this compressor listen not to the delay. I don't want to compress the delay. I want to compress the delay, but I want it to listen not to the delay. I want it to listen to the actual vocal. Here's how this works. I go into my compressor. Sidechain will not be on. I turn on sidechain. Sidechain is on. So now what can happen is this compressor is now listening for something. It's waiting for me to route something to it so it can listen to it and compress that signal. It's going to compress it at a ratio of 4.2 to 1. I got the threshold really low because I want it to compress the hell out of whatever is going to go to it. I got a really fast attack, and my release is set. This is where the magic lies, and it's in your release. All right? And some compressors are better at doing this than others. This one does it pretty well. There are other ones that could probably do it better, but for this instance, I use this one. So I'm going to close that. There's my compressor. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to come over here, and this is what I want to happen. I want that compressor to listen to this vocal bus. And I want it to listen and compress the hell out of that delay throw that's sitting on here. And I want it to compress it. And I don't want you to hear it during you're still going to hear it because there's no instrumental going right now. And it's going to be very low in volume. But I only want you to hear it when it comes to the end because I want these last words to echo out, not the whole damn thing. Now, in fact, it is echoing the whole thing. You just can't hear it because the compressor is going to compress the hell out of it. So how do we do that? We add a send. We're going to send this vocal to that side chain. That compressor over here is listening, so let's go send it to that. Here's my side chains. I'm going to send this vocal out to the side chain of the side chain for the delay throw for insert number 3, which is the compressor. So I'm going to click on that. It's there. Oops. Let's put that back where it was. So now, order doesn't really matter. It's just me. That's how I like to roll. So I got don't worry about the lead reverb. There's the sidechain, and I got my delay throw. But I need to set this to unity. What that means is 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, and in this program, if I hold control and then click on it, no matter what it is, it resets it to 0. I want that to be at 0. All right. My delay throw, that is going to be adjusted while listening. Okay. And I'm probably going to go with negative 13. Let's go with negative 13, somewhere around there. But your sidechain needs to be 0. It needs to be unity %. So I'm sending full volume from everything on this bus. All the audio going to this bus is being sent to that compressor. So this compressor is not really compressing the delay. Okay, it's compressing the delay, but it's not listening to the delay. It's listening to the vocal. So if I come over here now and play,
Fight, you can leave with all.
and let me only play, let's go over here to where you can only hear this part of the stress, and I mute this. Open this up. Open up the compressor. Watch.
You know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. I bet you gonna buy, but you can't. You know who's bad?
All right, so I'm not getting enough
You
compression.
know who's bad?
I want more compression than that.
You know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad.
All right, so I'm compressing it.
You know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. I bet you gonna buy.
Now you're hearing the delay because I got the delay on there. So what's happening now is this compressor is listening to that volume or those vocals, and it's going to use those vocals to set the compression of the delay. Now, here's where the magic comes in. You need to set somewhere on your send, you need to set it to pre-fader. That means if I have a post-fader and if I bring this volume down, see what's happening? The compressor is no longer, let's go look at the compressor. You're not supposed to hear anything anyway. Look at my compressor. I'm playing the audio right now. The audio is playing, but there's no compression happening. If I come over here and I set this to pre-fader, you're not going to hear anything, but guess what? My compressor is compressing. It is looking at the audio before the fader, pre-fader. So it's, no matter what I set this volume to, it's still going to compress that about, it's still going to do the compression by the same amount. Why is that important? It's important because if you're going to do automation on this track and you have this delay throw that's using the sidechain, you don't want it to be changing the compression amount when you're messing with this. You want it to still compress it a shit ton. So it needs to be set unity. It needs to be set pre-fader so you're sending out the audio. No matter what you set this to, it's always sending full audio to that compressor, and it's always doing the same amount of compression, and that's why you do that. Now, this should be -2. All right, so let's go look.
You know who's bad? Who
and see where the beauty comes. So all the way during this portion,
buy, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave.
So let's go adjust this to make it get the sound I'm looking for. So as I'm playing it,
Buy, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all.
now you'll notice over here, now we're only listening to these stresses, by the way. Watch what happens.
You know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad.
Let's go look at the compressor.
You know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. I bet you gonna buy, but
Let's throw in some more delay throw here.
you know who's bad? Who's bad? We bad. I bet you gonna buy, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that.
I know it sounds gritty and stuff like that. That's because of the saturation I have dialed in. So what's happening here is it's going
Who's bad? We
compression. If you notice, I say, I gotta set this up just right for you guys. Right here, what do I say? I say,
who's bad?
who's bad, right? And the verse is saying
Who's bad?
it too, right? And there's a gap here. So you're able to hear full volume. The compressor stops compressing right here, and it goes into its release mode, which releases the compression of the delay, so you're able to hear the delay at full volume. However, during the actual vocal, you would never hear it. So that comes important because right over here, it's a long little portion. So during this whole portion, the delay is going to be really low, and then once it reaches a gap, or it reaches, if the compressor can come out of compression, if there's a big enough gap, what's going to happen is the compressor is going to release it, and you'll be able to hear the delay. Otherwise, when the audio's going the whole time, it's constantly compressing it.
You gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that.
Okay? See, right when I said all that, you heard the compressor go. Watch this reduction. It's going to be reducing.
Bet you gonna bite, but you can't top.
When it's reducing, the delay is getting turned down. It's a turn downer. A compressor turns shit down. So it's turning down the delay.
Bet you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can fight, you can fight, you can.
You hear when I stop playback, it gets louder. That's because as the compressor releases it by 454 milliseconds, it releases compression. Volume comes back up. And then you're able to hear that delay. Because remember, we're just compressing the delay using the voice or the vocals from the actual bus.
Bet you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that. Smile on my face, flying the place. No problem. I got 'em with those eyes.
Now, it makes sense only when you listen to it with the vocals. So this allows me to have a quarter note delay even through this busy part by turning down the delay when I'm doing my busy stuff and only come in when there's gaps.
A bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that. Yeah, walk by with a smile on my face. While you in line, I'm going flying to place. Shorty wanna
Otherwise, now here's another example when it comes over here.
I'm going flying to place. Shorty want a shot, ha, no problem. Dollars I can drop, ha, I got 'em. Now she looking at me with.
You hear how that? You can just hear it on the end. So when I say I got 'em,
With those eyes, and I know that it means shorty. Ha, I got 'em. Now she looking at.
when I'm saying I got 'em, you can't really hear it because, of course, it's quarter note delay. It comes a little bit after, so that's probably not a good example. The only good examples of why this is important is right here.
You gonna bite, but you can't top.
I want the delay to be cut down. I've said this a million times, but there are slow people out there. I want the delay to be low, and then once it gets to the end, the delay to come in, and that's how it works. That is what a compressed, delayed, sidechain compressed, delayed reverb delay throw is. And I'm only using it on certain portions of the song. I'm using it for the stress right there. I'm using it for the sing stress. I'm using it for the whole pre-hook center, a very small amount. And I'm using it for the CLR bus. So how you use it is up to you. That is how you do sidechained compressed delay throws. Otherwise, you could just automate the delay on and off to only delay the parts you want, which is also even cleaner depending on what you're. I wanted it to be layered, so even though it's very low, and when the instrumental's going, it's super low, it's there and it's subliminal.
You gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight. You gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that. Yeah, walk.
The next step in my process is to basically enable all my plugins, have everything going that I need going, listen to my instrumental,
Hopping out my whip and I'm
and what I do is then I further tweak while listening to the whole song. I tweak more of my reverb, amounts. I might mess with the compression a little bit. And while I'm doing that, I will listen to each element also. For instance, the lead vocals to set levels, all right, because I need to set my levels from my left and my right. So let me unsolo that. Unmute those.
hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? Now you know what's up. Yeah.
All right, so what I'll do is I'll listen Now I have this stuff to the left and the right, and I have my instrumental. Now here's a real good tip for you guys. A lot of people have problems. I used to, for a little bit, until I figured it out. How do you set the instrument level compared to the vocals, especially with mixtape stuff? Now, if it's a good mixer, he mixed it just right, and he had an idea of what he was doing. A good way for you to set the vocal level is you pick an instrument inside of the instrumental. In this case, what people are going to use is the clap. However, if the clap is really low, you might be using the hi-hat. Hear that hi-hat? Hear the level, how loud it is? Not loud, but it's just up in volume. Then you hear the claps. Right? So, when you have it in stereo, like this instrumental's in stereo, it's kind of hard to set your level for your vocal to get a good idea of how loud it needs to be because you got stereo information. So here's the trick. And here, I can collapse the mono just by clicking on this button. However, if you guys want to collapse the mono, you got to use some plugins. A plugin that you can use is this BX Solo. So I could take Brainworks Solo, drop it on somewhere in here. Usually you'd want it at the end of your chain, so I'll drop it right here. This is post fader. And I'll just drop it up here, right below that. But I'm going to delete this one. So there it is. With something like this is my plugin alliance. I can go solo the mid or solo the side, but I just want to collapse it to mono, so I click on this M solo, it collapses it to mono. Same thing as me doing this. It's just, I got Persona Studio One. It's fucking awesome, and it has it already built in for simple stuff like that. So you can use the BX Solo, and there's other ones that have, also in your program, there might be a big mono button. Now what this does is it allows me to listen to, of course, not just the instrumental, but the instrumental with the vocals, and I'm listening to the clap or the hi-hat or whatever instrument I've chosen, and I'm using that as my level. So in solo, if I solo this and I listen to the clap, nope, the clap's a little lower than the hi-hat. So it's got to be a mixture between the hi-hat and the clap. And that's where my volume of my vocals is going to be.
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? Now you know.
Now if I have it like this,
Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
I got things going off to the left and the right, so it's going to be kind of hard to judge, especially in your hook. Let's go to the hook.
Club is on fire. Ain't got no time for hater.
Well, if I collapse that shit to mono,
Club is on fire. Ain't got no time for hater.
I can better get an idea of how I need to set my volume in relation to the instrumental. It's just a trick I use. Not everybody uses it. It's just an idea that you can use. Also, people have a hard time getting the volume between the hook and the lead vocal because the hook's wide and the vocal's more down the center. So people have a hard time getting the vocal levels right. The best way you can get your vocal levels right between the hook and the verse is to collapse the mono and listen.
You know why this club's on fire. Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
If you get a nice balance, now your hook is, it's going to be like when you're doing it this way, put it the same amount and your hook may seem super loud compared to your thing. So what I like to do is listen.
You know why this club's on fire. Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping.
I like the lead elements to be, when I'm summed to mono like this, in mono, I like the lead to be just a tad bit louder than the hook. The reason why is because once I uncollapse this, the hook's going to be right where it needs to be.
You know why this club's on fire. Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my
Hear how much louder, because it's off to the left and the right, that the hook is.
You know why this club's on fire. Hopping out my whip and
Now, if you're on speakers, if you're on headphones, it's really loud. But if you're on speakers and you're like, you know, where you need to be, it's going to sound different.
You know why this club's on fire. Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping.
However, when I collapse it to mono, it seems like all of a sudden the lead vocal. Well, that it is because it's mainly down the center. It's pan center. So when I collapse the mono, you're hearing the center stuff more louder, clearer.
Do you know why this club's on fire? Hopping out my whip and I'm gripping on my what's up? Ain't got no time for haters. Too busy burning paper. Throw it up, watch it fall from the sky. Now you know why this club's on fire.
So I have good mono compatibility because I pan one hard left, one hard right. They're all saying the same thing. I collapse the mono. You hear what's mono, and then you also hear just a little bit of that harmony because the harmony generators pan to the left and right 50%. So it's all in consideration, and it all brings it into a nice little balance in mono.
Ain't got no time for haters. Too busy burning.
A lot of people are like, who the fuck's going to listen in mono? Well, there's mono and there's true mono, but let's just say in the club. People left. You have something pan left and it's not pan to the right. Well, the people by the left speaker are going to hear what you're saying, what's coming out of there, but the people by the right speaker on the other side of the dance floor aren't going to hear what's supposed to be what's coming out of the left speaker because they're by the right speaker. Same thing with a lot of other cool effects that people use, like anti-phase effects and stuff. A lot of that has to do with mono compatibility, and it can be lost. But also, some people listen like through... I have this little thing that I plug into my phone. It's called the Music Bullet, and it's basic. There's a lot of places that make, or companies that make this type of thing. It's like an accordion type thing, and it amplifies the volume really crazy loud with one little speaker. Well, that's a little mono speaker. So this is how it would sound through a mono speaker.
Ain't got no time for haters.
So if anybody's plugging in a little thing to their phone where it's only one little speaker, like I know a lot of people do, they're just sitting around chilling, and they just carry around this little speaker in their pocket or wherever in their bag. Bitches carry shit in the bags. They'll know what it sounds like in mono. I just thought I'd throw out this mono compatibility trick because I do that a lot during my mixing. So I got all my effects going. Let's talk about that. So the next step is my all Vox bus and setting the all Vox levels. After I've gone through and done all my tweaks of everything else, I'll start my all Vox processing, and that's usually just a Kramer tape with a de-esser. And the EQ comes in a little bit later when I take this out to other systems and start monitoring out there. But I'll bust out my Kramer tape, and I'm using the Mastering Big and Open preset. I'm not a preset guy. I was just going through the presets looking for something that I thought would look... I basically didn't want any wow and flutter. I didn't want any noise. No slap delay, because you can use a delay in here. And I adjusted it all. But I went through the presets real quick listening, and then I tweaked it. And the record level is basically linked to the playback level to maintain constant volume, pretty much constant volume. And I got reproduction on, I got bias on over, and 15 inches per second. And I've analyzed this with VST plugin analyzer and using some other stuff because I know how to analyze plugins. And I was able to see what I was going after also as far as harmonic saturation. If I play this, you would not really be able to hear on your end unless you have a real good monitoring system. And even then, with this, even though I'm in stereo, it's like 192 kilobits per second MP3, I believe. You might not be able to hear that, but let's see if you can hear this.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
So let me solo the vocals only. Let's bring this down. Let me mute the instrumental. Bring back the Kramer tape.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you
So you guys probably can't hear the difference. I can hear the difference even with my headphones. You just got to know what to listen for. Smearing of the transients. Not really smearing them too bad, but just like nicely smoothing them over, getting rid of some of the harshness, adding some of that harmonic saturation that it's adding. You just got to know what to listen for when you're trying to use that. And then the de-esser.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
For some final de-essing. Once that's done, I will actually still stay in my studio, and I will then start my mastering process, which we're going to cover right now. So here's how this works. What I do is I like to mix with compression, the type of compression, because I usually do my own mastering. I like to mix with the compressor on. So I'll turn my compressor on. I will open my compressor of choice. In this case, I'm using the lovely PSP Master Comp, awesome mastering compression. compressor. However, I'm using this more as a leveler, all right? Because I don't need too much more compression, and I can get volume out of this track, all right? With very minimal compression, I can still get a lot of volume because everything else is compressed pretty heavily. So I'm using a 1.2 to 1 ratio, and I'm also using a very slow attack time of 141 milliseconds, a release of 1.5 seconds. Sidechain filter is very important. If you have compression going on, if you do not engage your sidechain filter when you're doing this wideband compression, basically a compressor that looks at all frequencies, well, actually right now it's set from 25 to 16 kilohertz. If you do not engage the sidechain filter, you're going to get some pumping, and that's probably what you're after. So if I start this, now remember this is compressing everything. Instrumental, because it's on my main, which I've colored purple for you guys so you can see it. It's on my main, basically my main output.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in this.
Watch the gain reduction. You're going to see there's a PPM meter and this VU meter, but just watch it, the red meter or whatever meter you want to look at, and look at it how it swings every time the bass hits.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters go.
Now that could be the sound you're looking for, but there's going to be some times during when the vocals are going that you could hear the vocals go out if you're doing it in this fashion, which might be what you're after. However, it's not what I'm after. I just need a little bit of level control throughout the whole track, and also the sound of gelling together everything at a 1.2 to 1 ratio. A lot of people are under the misconception that mastering engineers use multi-band compression every time. So every time you see a video on YouTube, it's like showing you multi-band compression. But you only bust out the multi-band compressor if you like the sound it's going to give you for this instance, or if there's a problem with the track and for some reason the mixer, mastering engineer cannot have the mixer go fix it. I can fix everything in the mix here except for the instrumental because I'm doing this mixtape fashion, but I could go adjust the instrumental. But I'm not using a mid-band, multi-band compressor. I don't need to. So what I do, if you notice, it's reacting to the bass. This is the sidechain filter, and what can happen is I can say, you know what, compressor, don't listen to the bass. I want you to ignore the lower frequencies and only compress above. Not exactly because of the roll-off of the filter, the high-pass filter here, but, 157 hertz. And if you notice now, as I bring that up, you're going to see that every time the bass hits, the needle isn't moving as much.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you talking about. Don't dare let my...
So now what's happening is it's not really reacting to the low frequency boom, 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 boom bass. It's reacting to more of the upper frequency material that I have it set to. I also set it not to hard knee, but soft knee, and it's not doing peak compression, it's doing RMS compression. So that's what I have it set to. All right, and I will then listen with this compressor. Now, I usually have the compressor on when I'm doing my mixing. So when I was doing all my mixing, I probably had this on, and sometimes I'll turn it off. So it's all dependent upon what I'm doing because I'll just turn it back on. There won't be much change needed inside of the mix because I don't use really heavy compression on the whole mix.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like...
So my next compressor up that I'll be using for, let's say if I'm doing my own mastering, and it's always going to be different. This is the compressor I like to use. Sometimes I'll use the Glue by Cytomic, but I prefer to use the mastering comp because I'm not trying to do heavy compression. The next one I will bring in is either the Oxford Inflator or the Ferric TDS, which is an awesome saturation. Now, a lot of people can't hear what this is doing. I can. A lot of people can if you have the ear for what you're supposed to be listening to. What this is emulating is kind of like tape saturation somewhat, because also you got the dynamic section here. And you basically tweak it to what you like. And how I tweak it is I basically tweak the saturation until I get the sound I'm looking for. As you dial in saturation, it is going to increase the volume, the sound. So that's going to make it sound better because the volume's getting louder. All right. So that's why you need to use your trim here and adjust your trim down so that you get accurate hearing when you bypass it while it's going and then while it's not going. So let's see here. I'm going to turn it on. Bring it over here.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
So you'll notice that when I bypass it, you're going to hear the vocals, well, you're going to hear everything get quieter.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but...
So as you can see, it does increase the volume. So, and if I even do this, it'll be even more because I was actually adjusting the trim. So let's leave the trim like this.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down,
But when you're doing something like this, you want it so that when you bypass whatever you're setting you end up with, that you can bypass and then it'll sound like no change in volume. You're just listening for a change in the sound.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah.
So about right there, when I go bypass, there's no change in volume. So this is where I would listen inside my studio and be like, how much saturation do I want? The thing is, it kind of gets messed up when you start changing your saturation. So you need to dial in your saturation and just try and ignore the fact that it's getting louder.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
All right, and the dynamic section over here, I dial that in.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
You need to pay attention to this. I have this set to about right there. It's a good setting. It works. It's very slow setting right there.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it.
I also got the side chain turned up to about halfway right there. Same concept for the dynamic section when I was talking about the compressor reacting to the lower frequency material.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
If your input's too low, you can always increase your input right here. All right.
Throw a lot of dollar.
Which is very important because the harder you drive this plug-in, the more saturation it's going to have. And I'm coming in just enough. I don't want to drive it too hard because I don't want to color the sound too much. Just a little bit.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down.
So now I'll adjust my trim so you guys can hear it with.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
So what are you listening to? What am I listening for? Well, I'm listening to everything. I'm listening to the clap. I'm not just listening to my vocals. I'm listening to the clap, the kick drum, the bottom end, the top end. Everything that I know that this kind of processing will affect. My vocals, how everything is sounding, because now is like something coming out more than something else now. You know, just everything. I'm listening to everything, not just one thing.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
If it does not help the track, don't use it. All right. If it's not going to help and get the sound you're looking for, don't use it. I might follow that up with an inflator. I usually do. Let's turn the inflator on, and I'm going to bypass it.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring it.
This will increase the volume. So if you want to monitor this and hear how it sounds, you need to take your output down. This is kind of like your trim. I'm just going to leave it like this. I'm using this. This is on. You got to read the manual and band split, okay? I'm not trying to drive this.
Throw a lot of dollar.
Because you can also drive this really hard, and it has some really cool stuff you can do with this thing. And you basically drive it into the overdrive section, but I'm not doing that. I'm using the clip 0 dB R and the band split mode.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in this.
Just dialing in some effect here, and when you dial in the effect, it basically brings in some of the effect that it's going to give you. Read the manual.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you talking about. Don't dare let my name leave your mouth.
If you add too much, it will smear everything. It'll sound too overdriven. Because we're mastering. We're trying to be subtle here. We're not trying to add a lot of stuff. I'm all digital right now, so I can use all the warmth I can get, but I don't want to go overboard. Sometimes I'll just use the inflator. I won't even use the ferric TDS. In this case, I would use it. I would do my own mastering for radio. The guy, the company that mastered it for like my SoundCloud and like for other stuff for clubs would be Balance Mastering, so check them out. I've talked about them before during this series, I believe. But for radio, I like to master for radio, and also I like to master at a lower volume. The master for clubs is like negative 8.5. The one I'd send to a radio station is like negative 10, negative 11, because they're going to compress the shit out of it anyway and make it sound like doo-doo if you're compressing too hard. Now, next part, I'm not going to be able to engage it because it'll blow your freaking eardrums out the back of your head. If that can even happen. Isotope ozone. I either use this or I will use the Oxford limiter. I I personally prefer the Oxford limiter. But for this instance, for this one, I like the way this one sounded. And what I'm listening for is what you're supposed to be listening to when you do your limiting. I go over the mastering for like 9 hours in my tutorial DVD. So if you want to know about that, I have dithering, no dithering on. I got the DC filter engaged to get rid of DC offset. I am not using intersampled peak detection. And I have IRC2. And I have, 0.1 is my top. Sometimes I put it at point. I usually just put it at 0.1. People put it at 0.2 or 0.3. It doesn't really. I go 0.1. It's up to you. I'm going to bring this down because I'm going to engage it. I got this on fast and loud. Basically, the character as you take it up. I got it at about 1. That's what I was going for. You got to listen to this as you're listening to your master. I was going for like a louder sound, so I went with this. It has to do with the release and stuff. And the transient recovery I have on, and I have it set to like 48.4 is where I wanted it. If you want to know what that is, read the manual. So I'm going to engage this, and I would listen to it, and I would start to bring down my level. Now, how do I set my levels and know that I'm going to be at about -10 RMS? I watch my meter here. A lot of people need extensive metering. I could pretty much look at this little meter here, and it's the white one. And I can adjust that to where it's around -9, where it's like hovering. See that little white line? I hope you can see it. It'll be around right there. And when it's hovering around there, not when the bass is hitting all the time, it's going to be moving, and it's all about your recovery settings for your meter. But this isn't a mastering tutorial, so I'm not going to get too in-depth. They do have more extensive metering options to find RMS level. Another thing you can do is get it within your range over here, inside here. Like, let's say if you're going for -10, have the RMS around there. Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Which this is not, and I can't bring it that loud because it'll blow your eardrums. But because of the reference level we're at right now. And what would happen is I'd bring it down, I'd get like -10, but I'm also listening to the sound and how much I'm compressing it. And then what happens is I basically bring the limiter up until it gets to the level I'm looking for. After that, I mix it down, make sure everything's enabled. I go song, export, mix down, and I'll mix it down just real quick to MP3, all right? And then I'll bring it inside Adobe Audition 3.0. I go over all this in my mastering portion of my other DVD. And I basically do a statistical analysis, and I see what the volume it says it is, analyzing the loudest portion of the song and about a minute of the song. And it'll tell me like -11.7 RMS. And I'll think, you know what? This sounds loud enough. I can leave it at this. Or do I want to push it a little more? Yeah, sure. I'll go push it a little more. Let's get -10. So I'll go add another dB of gain on my mastering limiter here. But also, I have my studio set up using the K system, all right? And I believe this is set to K. Right now it's peak RMS. I also use the K system of metering. I'll use K12 usually. That's not what this DVD is about, so I'm not going to go over that. I don't think I go over that too. I don't go over it too in depth. But it's basically a reference system that I can listen to a song on my studio system, and I know the reference level for loudness. So when I'm dialing in my limiter and I'm bringing up the loudness, I know about where it needs to be anyway just by listening to how loud it is. So that's the level it needs to be for mastering. Of course, I'll look at my meter. I'm using frequency analysis meters and all kinds of other wacky bullshit that this thing has. You know what I'm saying? And all your programs have. I might throw a frequency analysis after this. And I'm basically listening for the sound. I don't really use my eyes as much as I use my ears. If I am hearing something, I'll bust out my frequency analyzer and throw it on there, and then I'll start to listen and see, okay, yeah, there is something going on around that area. Also, I also collapse the mono. Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I'll be... Hear how things are going to sound. You just need to be careful with collapsing the mono once you get into the top end of your limiter. Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's what I would do for my master with this one. That's what I did anyway. I didn't end up using the glue, but if I do use the glue, I'll do some hardcore top-end limiting is what I call it. basically I'll use like a hardcore ratio of 4:1 with a 600, 400, release is going to be dependent, of super slow attack time. But I like this one because it's supposed to be an SSL emulation, but you have the option of using your sidechain filter. So I'll dial it up to like, let's say 140 to get rid of all the bass energy. Let's turn it on.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these
And if I'm looking for like that pumping vibe to be going on, I'll use this right here. And a lot of people will tell you, like, you go on the mastering engineering forums, they'll say, oh no, we never compress at 4:1. Well, see, what they don't realize is the mixing engineer probably, since I'm doing the mixing and the mastering, sometimes the mixing engineer already did that before they even knew about it. The mixing engineer was like, you know what? I'm going to put some master bus compression on this track, and I'm going to use a 4:1 ratio because I fucking want to, and I love the way it sounds. So the mastering engineer, of course, when he's looking at it, the mastering engineer isn't there to change the total sound of your song. He is there to basically bring everything within the same level, issue the codes for your tracks, all kinds of other stuff. And if he is going in there and having to do all kinds of crazy, wacky shit, well, that's because your mix is just jacked the fuck up, and you need to get on your game. You need to start acoustically treating your room and buying my tutorial DVD, my other one, so you can learn how to at least get a handle on the theory and shit like that. Y'all my people, I love you, so it is what it is.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it.
So a mastering engineer would probably look at this. If I said, oh, I'm doing some mastering right now, and he'd be like, oh, you're using a 4:1 ratio? Holy fucking shit, you're retarded. But that's just because I'm doing it. I'm doing the mastering. But let's say that I'm the mixing engineer, and I decided to put a 4:1 ratio over the mix bus. That's my choice, my prerogative. I do what the fuck I want.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you talking about. Don't dare let my name leave your mouth if you don't believe.
Now, they call this the glue. They call it cytomic the glue for good reason, because it really gels everything together. So when I master for radio, I am actually going to use the glue. I'll be using it.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
You can further adjust. You see this range knob? What I can do is I can say, you know what? I like this, but I only want to... there's going to be parts during the song where... No, I know this ain't a mastering tutorial, and I probably shouldn't be going over all this shit, but whatever. I'll give you guys some more info. When you're mastering, there's going to be parts of the song that are going to be louder than others. So let's say I'm at a soft portion. You should be going to the loudest portion of the song and going from there. But if I'm setting this compressor during a certain part of a song and then I'm getting like, let's say 3 decibels of reduction, and that's all the reduction I want, I set this to 3 decibels reduction, and when it gets to that louder part, it's not going to compress it more than 3 decibels.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
As you can see, it's not compressing much anymore.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
And this has a soft knee, so the range is dependent upon the knee of the compressor.
Throw a lot of dollar,
which I could analyze and find out, but I didn't set up this compressor. I didn't, code it or anything, so he knows I don't. I could always analyze it and find out. The knee of the compressor is going to affect the range too.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters.
I'll just keep it at full. I'll listen to it. If I'm getting like 4 decibels reduction, okay, well that's going to allow me to get it even louder on the master. It's also just me doing stealth nerd ninja. Okay, some people wouldn't say stealth because it's such heavy compression. Oh my God. But whatever.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
So I would do that, and I would be like, you know what? That sounds good. You know what it's time to do? It's time to take it to my fucking car. It's time to take it to the fucking radio. I'm going to throw this whole session. I'm going to save it, file, save. I'm going to throw that bitch on my laptop, and I'm going to go out, and then that's what we're going to talk about next. Now, once I'm done doing my quick mix master, or I wouldn't really call it that because I did spend some time on it, I'm done mixing in my studio. I want to go see how this sounds on other playback systems in my car, on my Ghetto Blaster. What I do next is I create a new folder on my desktop called Club on Fire Ready for Laptop. I go File, Save to New Folder. I save this whole session to that folder. It is a whole new session. It is actually a copy, and it has all the files copied. All right, so it's kind of like a backup. And I'm going to put that on my... I do this many times throughout the whole process of mixing and creating and recording. I'll have like 6 different copies on my external hard drive. But I take this and I put it on my hard drive and I take it to my laptop. I then take my laptop and I take it to my car, to my truck, using the headphone output on the laptop, using a 1/8 to 1/8 male connector. I'm plugging into different things, and I'm basically playing this session, opening it up, the exact same session that you see here, and I listen. What am I listening for? I'm listening for resonant frequencies, things that just, I would be able to hear them here. If I take a day off and come back, I might hear them, and I can hear them, but other playback systems are going to give you resonances that others don't. So you can't possibly tackle everything, but I can tackle as many as let's say genres as I want. Speaker systems that are in cars, speaker systems that are in like trucks, because I have a truck and a car. They're both different size on the inside, which affects reverb and all that kind of stuff. And then I have my ghetto blaster behind me. So not a lot of people do this. I do it, and it works pretty well. And I also use reference. I use other songs as references. I have a whole bunch of references that I use, just songs that I like. Man, I keep saying right? So basically, I take this out there and I go listen. Now, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to bring up this EQ, open it up, and let's just turn this one off. And I'm going to turn on the high quality just to show you what this does right quick. If I dial in a high frequency shelf, and if I have high quality off, it changes the smoothness of that filter there. So I usually always have high quality on. I'm just going to turn it off for now, just for saving resources. Now, what I'm doing is I'm listening. I'll pick a portion I'm going to listen to, let's say all the lead vocal elements, and I'll enable those EQs. All right, I'm just going to disable these right for now. Let's enable that one. Might as well have them all on, right? Why not? And let's just turn these off. So when I get them, it's flat. There's nothing going on. All right. And we're going to go look at the lead vocal.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
And what I do is I bring out my EQ for that portion, and I listen.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real.
And this is what I do. I bring this up. All right. If you see, I got a really high Q all the way, and I use the steepest Q they got. Bring it up.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
And what I do first is I listen.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real.
But I have this ready to go. It's ready to go where I need it, okay? And I usually start in the low frequency region, and then I'll work my way up. But this is just an example. Actually, let's just start down here. We got one, yeah. There we go. So I'll listen, and I'll listen to low frequency.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but
and remember, this is a vocal element. This isn't the instrumental. This is the actual vocal.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
And it's only the lead vocal. So what you can do also is I also do this. I'll mute this and this.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
I listen, and what I'm listening for is something. Basically, it doesn't have the EQ response that I'm looking for, and there's some stuff that's sticking out more than others. I did use a cheap microphone, and also the room. Everything causes, a lot of different things cause resonant frequency, so let's listen, and I'm going to see and show you what a resonant frequency is.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
And also, just looking at this graph, I can also see where I'm going to have problems.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you. Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
So I got one right here. Once I find it, I can just grab this and bring it down. But I'm going to leave it flat first, okay?
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
And while it's playing, I will bring it down.
Throw a lot of dollar bills.
First, I'll bring it down a lot, and then I'll start to bring it back up.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you.
All right, so once I get one set there, I'll go to my next one. Let's do this in real time.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but
I'm listening and I hear something.
throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you. Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us.
If I hold my shift key, I can be even more accurate with this movement.
Throw a lot of
But it's about right there. Once I find it, I'll start to bring it down.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that.
Now what I was doing was called, I call it pulsing. Everybody has their own methods. I'm basically going back up and then down, and I'm like saying, you do gotta give it some time to think. And I'm basically like saying, okay, there's that frequency. Let's see. Okay, I'm removing it, not removing it. Okay, I hear it. Where does it sound best? Does it sound better without it? Maybe. Does it? Let's see. No, it's annoying. Let's get rid of it. Okay, that's what I'm doing. It's all in real time, so let's do this in real time one more time.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you. Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
There we go.
Keep it
right there.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you.
I have really good headphones, so I'm able to hear what's going on. And then I'll move on.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky.
I'll start listening over here, and then let's take out the instrumental for a second so you can hear even better what's happening.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what.
I'll turn in high quality mode.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care. Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie. Don't care what you. Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
Right now where I'm sitting, that might be one.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try.
But that's not the frequency I'm hearing. I mean, I know that that is a resonant frequency right now, but that's not what I'm hearing.
Throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but
I'm hearing a harshness around right there. And a little trick you can do is set this up, save it as a preset, and then reset it, and then close down the whole system, come back tomorrow, go find your resonant frequencies again. If you find the same resonant frequencies, you know that your ears are not lying and you are actually hearing something in that frequency range. You don't have to wait a whole day, but it is good to wait a couple hours or an hour or so.
throw a lot of dollar bills in the sky. Keep it real, but these haters gon' try. Bring us down, but I be like, nah. You think you fly, but you know that's a lie.
So this is what I do, and I go through every single element. I will then bring in this element.
Throw a lot of dollar try.
Of course, you want to find a spot where you're getting a lot of it, which is not right here, which is over here.
That you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that. That you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that. Smile on my face, fly. That you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that. That you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that. Smile on my face, fly. That you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that. That you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that. That you gonna bite, but you can't top that. And that you wanna fight, you can leave with all that.
And I don't always leave them. I know all these are sharp, but on some occasions, depending on what I'm doing, I may, if you have to do a big dip, sometimes I used to find myself, because I did not have good acoustic treatment, doing major dips like this, using an EQ yin and yang thought process. Instead of doing a big dip like this, you could do a smaller dip and increase your Q, which will make you have to do a less of a dip. And you can increase your Q like that. All right, just something to think about. So that's basically what I do. Don't want to bore you guys with that nonsense. You guys get the idea. I go through and I find all my resonant frequencies for all my vocals, and then I have a listen through the whole song, and then each portion I'll come in and I'll set all my EQs up. Let's see, that one I ended up going with something like that. All right, for the pre-hook center. This one ended up not even being resonant, so I didn't even use it. This one, which is the CLR, ended up having, like right here, you can see my Q for the yellow is still 24, and they're 24 all the way across the board because that's how I heard the frequency resonance. And you can see where I did it, and I did that all along the way here. All right, so that's once I'm done with that, once I'm done removing my resonant frequencies, what I will then do is save that session to a new folder called Final Club on Fire. What I do with that is I bring it back into my studio. I will then open up and hear what I've done. So how do I hear what I've done? Well, I'll have everything going, and what I'll do is I'll start listening, and I'll enable and disable the resonant EQ and see if I'm hearing what was going on. And if the resonant removal removed too much of something, I will tweak it, because I really depend on my studio mainly as the final say. But I sometimes tweak because I'm like, you know what, that did remove too much of a sound that I liked inside that vocal, so I do need to back off on that shelf a little bit. Or, you know what, now I'm actually hearing that frequency now that I'm thinking about it, and I'm sitting here, you know, maybe I should bring it down a little more. So it's all dependent upon the instrumental, other instruments, what's happening. Because when you're doing your resonant removal, you need to have your instrumental going too. The reason why you need to have your instrumental going is because you need to be listening for masking. Because what else I'm doing with this EQ is resonant frequencies, but also you got to think about masking, and that is one of my vocal elements stepping on another instrument. In this instance, this song isn't real busy. There's not a lot of instrumentation going on, so I didn't really have to worry about that. But on another song, if there's a lot of instrumentation, when I'm doing my EQ for my final portion, I'm also listening for masking. Is my vocal ad-lib stepping on something, or is it not coming through clear enough? If I have the instrumentation, I'll usually go fix the instrumentation or do a balance between the vocal and the instrumentation. So that's pretty much it with that.